Chair will call the April 5th, 2016 meeting of the City Council order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Alderman Redpath.
Here.
Alderman Senor.
Here.
Alderman Turner.
Here.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
Here.
Alderman Proctor.
Here.
Alderman Joe.
5:30 on the dot.
Alderman McMiniman.
Here.
Alderman Tylen.
Here.
Alderman Donlin.
Here.
Alderman Hanauer.
Here.
Mayor Langfelder.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, a quorum is present.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to allow Alderman Jobe to participate via phone according to the City Council rules.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I do have one proclamation to present to Xavier Bishop, so if you'd like to come forward, please.
Yeah, I am.
And Alderman Turner. That's good. So it gives us great pride anytime we can recognize the youth of our community, because when it's all said and done, every action we take as aldermen or city council members, elected officials, is for the youth of our community. So it's great that we're going to recognize Xavier Bishop, and the proclamation reads, whereas for nearly 8 decades, Lanphier High School has celebrated the academic, musical, and athletic accomplishments of its students who passed through their hallways and went on to become great inspirations and leaders throughout our community. And whereas today we recognize and honor the newest Lion who made his way into the spotlight for his performance both in the classroom and on the court, and whereas Xavier Lytle Bishop, a senior at Lanphier High School, is a true scholar athlete who marked his young basketball career with great accomplishments, including becoming the all-time leading scorer in Lanphier High School history with 2,287 points, all-time leading scorer in Sprngfield Public School District history of 186 with a 2,287 points, all-time career leading scorer in the history of the Sprngfield City Tournament, 270 points, the most points scored in a city tournament game with 50 points, and the most points scored in a city tournament weekend with 102 points. And whereas the 5 foot 8 inch tall point guard, that's my favorite part. Dynamite does come in small packages. Led Lanphier as a strong team captain for 4 years and was the only player in the Pekin Holiday Tournament history to be named to the all-tournament team for 4 years. And whereas Xavier received numerous accolades, including being named as the 2016 Central State 8 Conference Player of the Year, the Central State 8 Conference Basketball Team for 4 years, the Central State 8 Conference All-Academic Basketball Team, and the IBCA All-State Basketball Team for the 3 years, the Associated Press, and to the Chicago Times, Sun-Times All-State Basketball Teams, and the Champaign News-Gazette All-State Basketball Team honorable mention. And whereas Xavier is not only a leader on the court, but in the classroom as well, being a member of the National Honor Society and scoring a 4.2 GPA. Yep. That's my second favorite part. Whereas Xavier understands the true definition of dedication in his 4 years as part of Lanphier High School basketball program, his coach Blake Turner said he never missed a workout or weightlifting session, voluntary or involuntary. And whereas Xavier signed with the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where basketball and academic greatness will come to him. And in the words of my own father, former Mayor Ozzie Langfelder, who was also a Lanphier High School graduate, we realized life was a wish for success, and we would not dream of anything less. Now, therefore, I, James O. Langfelder, Mayor of the City of Sprngfield, Illinois, do hereby proclaim that Tuesday, April 5th, 2016, shall be Xavier Bishop Day in the city of Springfield, and congratulate you on all your accomplishments.
I didn't know I was going to give a speech or anything, but I just like to thank, my family. First, I thank God, I wouldn't be here without him. Then I like to thank my family for all the support. And then Coach Blake, he believed in me from day one, being, a freshman at Lanford, being 5'5", 130 pounds. So, I know that was stressful on him, but, just everybody, that supported me throughout my whole process at Lanford High School and just my whole life, I like to thank. And, hopefully I'll try to do my city proud, and also Lanford High School at UMKC.
Another line does good.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about, Chuck.
And I have to give props to Alderman Senor, who put aside his differences in high school and took pictures, so we really appreciate that. That was very good. So if you'd send that to us, that'd be great.
I have to tell you, he and my son communicate through the Twitter.
Yeah.
So they communicate all the time. So
That's great. Well, congratulations again. The chair will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the March 15, 2016 City Council meeting and approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council first reading of ordinances into the record of this City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council reading of the consent agenda into the record of this City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
question, would that include 151?
151.
I don't see 151 on here.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's on the
Okay,
debate.
very good.
It's on the debate
Debate
agenda.
already.
Very good. Any other questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to place the consent agenda on final passage.
So moved.
Moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Jobe, how do you vote? Yes. Thank you.
Is there any abstentions? Okay. Alderman Fulgenzi will vote present on all the liquor-associated ordinances.
Noted.
Mr. Clerk, would you note that I will vote present on all the DOT ordinances that have a dollar value on them?
Noted.
Thank you.
Alderman Senor votes present on all the IDOT-related ordinances with the dollar amount associated with them. Any other abstentions? So the motion carries with 10 voting yes, none voting no. Agenda numbers 2015-116, 2015-121, 2015-369, 2015-371, 2016-099, 2016-100, 2016-150, 2016-152 remain tabled or in committee. Next item on the agenda is agenda number 2016-123.
Mr. Mayor, can you hold up a minute, would you, sir? I want to do this. I want to move 150 to debate agenda, sir. I'm sorry if I did it out of order.
Oh, 150?
Yes, sir, I want to move it to the debate.
It's been moved and seconded to move ordinance 2016-150 to the debate agenda. And it's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor vote aye, or say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries with one abstention, or in opposition. So the next item on the agenda is item number 2016-123, an ordinance approving the appointment of Starla R. Norris to the Sprngfield Disabilities Commission. The chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-123 on final passage.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. I believe she's here. Is that correct? Hi, Starla, you want to come up and introduce yourself?
My name is Starla Norris, and I work for the Sprngfield Center for Independent Living. We're an advocacy organization for people with disabilities. I've been employed at Skill for approximately 21 years now, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve on the Disability Commission.
Thank you. Any questions? All those,
A question for Treasurer's Office. All these candidates been vetted?
Yes, there was just one that
Vetted,
had.
I'm sorry?
One that had a debt and she paid it, we're good, and it was not Starla, by the way.
In that case, I'd make a motion that we consolidate the ordinances for appointments, 123 through ordinance 129.
Second.
Second.
so been moved and seconded to place ordinances 2016-123 through 2016-129 as one motion. Any discussion?
I agree with the motion, but I would like to know who these people are, because I think if they're serving on public boards and commissions, we have a right to see their face.
Okay.
So if they are here, I would ask that they stand up and introduce themselves.
Okay.
Anybody that's up for appointment tonight, please stand up. Just state your name.
So,
Sorry to take over, Mayor.
that's right.
Veronica Williams, I work for the Illinois State Board of Education.
If you want to come up to the podium, that'd be great. If you would, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Starla.
Hello.
If each one wanted to come up.
Veronica Williams, I work for the Illinois State Board of Education. I'm in leadership Sprngfield, and I sit on the board of the YSPN.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Veronica.
Greetings, Clarice Ford, University of Illinois, Springfield. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs.
Thanks, Clarice.
I'm Rhiannon Gurley. I started a business called Our Vibrant Community to unify the art in the Springfield area.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
I'm Blanca Bernasic. I'm retired from Lincoln Land Community College. I was the director of the Multicultural Awareness Center there.
Thank you very much.
I am Deanie Brown. I'm an attorney licensed to practice in the state and the Associate Chancellor for Access and Equal Opportunity at UIS.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the other individual was Harish Bhatt, and he was here at the committee as a whole, actually. Any other questions or discussion? So all those in favor to consolidate the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Next item on the agenda.
Motion for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
Place on passage.
don't I have to read them into the record? Or not?
Yes.
Should I read them all into the record? Very good. Oh, so shouldn't I read them into the record first and then vote for passage?
Motion to adopt, and then you can read them through in their entirety
Okay,
for each one. And then finally a vote.
okay. So motion to adopt,
So moved.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Can I do that?
We'll have to take a
roll call?
vote with the machine, but you should read through each of the ordinances just so they're a matter of record.
Right.
As to each appointment. The
Right.
first one you read, and then the next
Right.
one would be 125.
Okay. So anybody opposed to that passage? Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is number 2016-124, an ordinance approving the appointment of Deanie Brown to the Community Relations Commission. Next on the agenda is number 2016-125, an ordinance approving the appointment of Rhiannon Gurley to the Sprngfield Community Relations Commission. Next appointment is agenda number 2016-126, an ordinance approving the appointment of Veronica Y. Williams to the Sprngfield Community Relations Commission. The next appointment is agenda number 2016-127, an ordinance approving the appointment of Blanca Bernasic to the Sprngfield Community Relations Commission. Next appointment is agenda number 2016-128, an ordinance approving the reappointment of Clarice R. Ford, EDD, to the Sprngfield Community Relations Commission. And then the final one is the appointment, agenda number 2016-129, an ordinance approving the appointment of Harish Bhatt to the Community Relations Commission. So all those in favor of the passage signify by voting yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Joe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion of all the appointments passed, 10 voting yes, none voting no. So do I have a motion to bring ordinance number 2016-132 out of order
So moved.
for discussion? Been moved and seconded?
Yes.
So ordinance number 2016-132 is an ordinance approving and restated and amended contract for sale and purchase of coal with Arch Coal Sales Company, Inc., including the terms of the 2016 coal price redetermination for the Office of Public Utilities.
Move for
Chair will
passage.
entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-132 on final passage.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I would like Doug Brown to come up and give a brief presentation on the recommendation by the administration, and then we'll open it up to others that have signed up on this item.
So basically, from our last committee of the whole meeting, where I gave the full presentation, I just basically put some reminders on each of your chairs of that presentation as far as what the comparison is of foresight and option of going with an arbitrator for the next 2 years versus Arch's proposal. And you can clearly see what the savings are for each. But the main thing with these is that we got to remember is that the coal price, there's a risk with that. The arbitrator is what sets that first 2 years, as well as once that happens, that could be set higher. The price adjusters that exist in the existing coal contract are still in effect. So basically, Arch will be able to automatically apply those cost adjustments and drive our price up more. So there's significant risk in those costs that we need to consider, especially when you consider what the cost is to switch to a different coal source and the resources that consumes for the utility, monetarily and with internal labor. Recommendations, again, are to adopt the coal contract ordinance as it is. We have $57.9 million in savings right now that are guaranteed. Fixes the coal and ash prices for the next 5 years. It meets our ash disposal needs right now and for the next 5 years. So there's less risk now. We're going to avoid capital cost of switch. We avoid again, the higher price possibly being set by the arbitrator. Avoid any kind of adjustments by the price adjusters in the current contract. And we're going to ensure fair competition in the future here. So we'll have competing mines. So those are the recommendations for the utility and administration.
Is there any questions for Doug Brown?
I have just a couple of quick
Alderman
questions.
Donnelly?
Director, how much will if we accept the offer on the table for the Arch price, how much total will that save?
That's the $57.9 million.
So it's $57.9 million total.
Right.
Just with coal?
That's with coal and the ash.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
What I should point out, though, is the refunding, when we did our projections, we calculated in $39 per ton of coal.
Right.
And the $14 per ton on ash. Is that correct?
Right, but these savings.
From our budget, the real savings is going from $39 down to $36 roughly, which, and then the other one would be $14 down to $5. So the impact on the budget is not the $57 million, it's really little, I guess, more like $16 million.
Well, and what I'm saying here is really is from our existing contract price that we're currently paying. and getting down, so that's basically the $45.
I just want everybody
coming
to
down
understand
to
from a budgetary
45.
standpoint what the impact is.
And the additional savings from $39 to this present proposal of 36 and some change, what we do with those savings is not a subject of conversation this evening, but it will
Correct.
be.
That would come up at the next committee meeting.
We've sent that to the committee of the whole, I believe, right?
Right, yes.
Right. And just
Yeah, committee of the whole.
just making sure that's the case,
That's-
Director, and
yes.
again, reiterating that it'd be wonderful, as we discussed in past meetings, if some of those funds could be rebated to the ratepayers, and we'll have that discussion in our next meeting. Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Senor?
Help me out, I'm new with this, and I don't mind telling folks I'm new, because this is a lot to understand, but what happens if we don't accept the contract and we go to arbitration, and how long would this be binding for the arbitration, and then the current contract will end 2020, is that correct?
Well, yeah, the current contract expires in 2020,
Okay.
so if we go to arbitration, we have two options there, really. One is to accept it and then have another price reopener in 3 years. The other one is to reject it and take, go with Foresight's offer. And so that would be in 2 years, we would be able to take a new coal source.
So you said go to arbitration, we'll have another reopener in 3 years, 3 years from today? 3 years from 2016?
Not if we reject, if we go to arbitration and we reject it,
Right.
then we would take, the arbitrator is going to set that price, and that's what we would be required to buy coal from for the Arch for the next 2 years at that price.
Okay.
Then at that point, we can go to a different coal
So
source.
that would be 2017, is that correct? 2 years
It'd
from...
be 2 years, be 2018.
2018, okay. And then, but still the contract would end in 2020, is that correct?
Not if we terminate the contract. So again, if we go to arbitration and we do not like that price, and Arch, we can't come to terms with that, well, we can terminate the contract then at that point. So if we terminate that contract, it'll get terminated then in 2 years.
So that would terminate the whole contract, and we'd start like another one just for 2 years, is that correct? And we'd be
Well,
voted-
at that point, we would start a new contract, yes. in
Okay, so that means the
2018.
current contract will be null and void now,
Right.
because we'd be working under new terms, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
What you'd have to do is put it out for bid after the arbitration period. So whatever the market is at that point in time, that's what the pricing would be with the ultimate contract in 2018. Going forward, so that'd be a whole negotiating process.
But no matter what, if we accept the terms of the new, then this contract's going to expire in 2020, is that correct?
Correct, because it's a fixed price. So we accept Arch's offer, pass this ordinance, then we'd have a fixed price for 5 years.
Thank you.
Alderman Fulgenzi?
So what you're saying is that if we send it to arbitration and they don't come up with a price that we can accept, we can null and void the contract in 2 years?
Right, but that means that we're paying a higher price than what we're currently being offered.
But how do you know that?
Why would we be
It's a
paying
risk.
a higher
That's what I've been
price?
saying, it's a risk.
It's whatever the market will bear at that point in time.
So if
2
they've
years
given us a
from now.
price of, say, $35 from Arch and $30 from Foresight, it would be higher than either one of those two numbers, not a conglomeration of the two?
They would be looking at all offers, not just those.
Well, those are the only two offers we have.
They would be looking at all commitments. That's what the contract requires.
I'd ask Corporation Counsel Zirkle if you could explain the arbitration process, please.
Certainly. And again, keep in mind that what you have in front of you are settlement proposals as it relates to the negotiated agreement with Arch. The arbitration process is kind of like a simplified version of litigation, more or less informal, or more informal. So the arbitrators would look at the existing market prices as established by actual coal contracts. And so, at least in my view, there is a risk to the city, since litigation is always unknown in terms of what the results will be. I don't think that the arbitrators would limit themselves just to the negotiated settlement and just to the RFP proposal. in order for that to prevail, the city would literally have to go out and negotiate actually binding contracts. And then all of that would be submitted to the arbitrators, in which case Arch could also present other contracts that they've negotiated with other parties. So it is not limited to just the RFP and just the negotiated settlement. I don't think the arbitrators would limit it to that. This is a compromise. What you have in front of you is a compromise negotiated settlement. So in my view, I think in light of just in comments that Doug has made, it's a matter of risk assessment, and it is, I would, as an attorney, would not advise the city council that we could do better in arbitration. I think that no attorney, no proper attorney would ever be willing to basically make a commitment where you might come back later and say, wait a second, I thought you said it would be less. So this is a matter, in my mind, at least of risk balance in relation to the fact that we have 5 years left on the contract, and we're not, we don't have all the options we normally would have if we were at the end of a normal contract without the arbitration requirement.
Remember, one more thing with that, the risk that we have is also with the coal price adjusters. So those factors there that are automatically applied can raise the price of coal $1, $2 a ton. We've seen it in one given year that it raised $7 a ton. So there's implications there that are expose us to risk that I can't tell you what it's going to be, but it exposes us to risks.
The real item is you have two potential risks. One is the arbitration, whatever that price could be higher than the $35.90 that we've negotiated. Nobody really knows, but after the 2 years, you're looking into the future, and what you're really doing is saying, okay, we think we'll get better pricing than $35.90 2 years into the future, plus the additional 3 years. Really, this contract fixes the price of coal for $35.90, where it was at the beginning of this presentation. We were at $45. So really, we've improved the financial position of the utility with this contract, and that's why we're recommending it, because it minimizes our risk. It offers us more certainty because, you know, we've dealt with Arch Coal with regards to providing coal to the CWLP, and that's why we're making the recommendation.
Mayor.
Alderman Hanauer?
A couple things. Based on my advanced Griffin math, I had to get Griffin in there, by the way, for the Southeast and Lanphier folks.
We beat you guys 2-0 in football.
But anyway, that might have been the last time they beat it. Anyway, with everything said, from where we were December 31st, by my math, with this coal contract, we saved $70 million. 59.4 for coal, 2.7 for ash, and 8 on transportation, about what we've saved. I think that's pretty good. And I agree, we might be able to save more, but you'd have that risk. And I'm not willing to risk the taxpayers, the ratepayers' money when we're going to redo this thing in 5 years, and we can get out of this 1920s contract that quite frankly is not favorable to the city. And so I urge that we vote yes on it.
Alderman Senor and then Alderman Turner.
Well, Alderman Hanauer, with all that being said, then I want to reiterate a statement that Alderman Donnelly made, that there should be some relief that comes to the ratepayers.
I agree with you 100%.
They should not see any type of increase at all anytime soon because of, if we are realizing these types of savings, then there should be this relief that goes to the ratepayers.
And I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
That's why we did the rate restructuring with the refunding, and that's why the bonding agency backed up the city council's process and backing CWLP with an upgrade by removing the negative outlook and making it a positive outlook because of the steps we've taken as a city council, and this is one additional step to that. So thank you very much. Alderman Turner?
This is, excuse me, this has probably been the most difficult discussion that I've been in the whole 5 years that I've been on this council. And it's been made even more difficult for me because this is a subject matter to which I don't have a lot of insight, I don't have a lot of insight or history with. So I've had to rely on, been in a lot of discussions with some of my colleagues on the council. I know I've talked a lot with Ralph about this because he's really done a lot of research on it. I've had brief conversations with other aldermen about it. And I've read, tried to read a lot about it, read a lot about ARCH, read a lot about foresight. And it just seems that every time we come here and start discussing this, the numbers are different. I mean, there never seems to be any consistency in the information that we're given. Even as we sit here tonight, in the brief time that we've been here, half an hour, and we've heard 3 different numbers of what the savings is going to be. Doug Brown said the savings was going to be $57 million. The mayor said 16, and then Ralph, I don't know if we can trust those Griffin numbers, but he said,
I had Bob Pisers for math, so he's pretty good.
He said 70 million. I mean, there's just never any consistency, and that really scares me because whatever decision that we make tonight is going to have far-reaching ramifications for a lot of different entities and a lot of different people. And I'm concerned because we don't have that consistency, for one. I'm also concerned because I heard what the representatives from ARCH said, was it last week? But then what he was saying last week is contrary to a number of different articles that I've read about ARCH, and it's also contrary to a lot of information that I've received from employees who actually work at ARCH. And so that's very troubling as well. And then to add to that, there's this big controversy with the DNR permitting process that's going on in Elkhart, which to me doesn't seem like it's going to have any resolution to it. So I'm just in a quandary on what to do here because there's too many unknowns, and as long as we've been talking about this, the unknowns are still there and the inconsistency is still there. And I respect what CWLP is saying because that's what they do. I respect what the mayor's saying because I know for a fact that he's always going to act in the best interest of the city. But I also have to respect what my mind is telling me with, the research that I've done and all these inconsistencies that I continue to hear. So it's just a very difficult situation, and I always feel like that I have to act in the best interest of the ratepayers, of which I am one, because if you look at the makeup or the demographics of my ward, I cannot afford to make a decision that is going to end up with negative repercussions to my constituency, because these are the people in the city of Sprngfield that can least afford me making a misstep in this vote. So again, I just continue, even at this late date, continue to hear all of these inconsistencies.
So I'll, coming from the banking background, I'll tackle the numbers one and add clarity, but I'll let Doug answer the other questions with regards to DNR and the coal ash issue and the other questions you had. But with regards to the numbers, where those came from was, remember, we have to go back when we first started, we did the rate restructuring and the refunding for our bonds, and the projected number we used at that point in time, and Doug can correct me if I'm incorrect, is $39 or approximately that amount per ton. The reason we use that number, because that was the original number that ARCH came back to us with regards to pricing. So that was back in July, I believe, somewhere around there. And so that's what the number we used for not only the refunding projections, but we also plugged that into the budget because we knew that would be our worst-case scenario moving forward. Consequently, with our negotiations, the dollar amount, and on that was the $14. After renegotiating with Arch, we were able to come forward with the pricing that's in front of you right now, which is the $35.90 fixed price for 5 years, and then the coal ash price dropped to $5. So that price, and that's where the 57 million that Doug's using is that whole pricing from $45 where we were before all the refunding and everything else to where we are today. So he's looking at where we were with Arch previously, according to the contract we had in place, to today if we accept the current pricing. So that's that whole spectrum. The one I'm looking at is what's been budgeted in, according to this budget, and then where we're at with the improved price that from the projected price of the $39 and $14 on the ash. So that's the differential in the numbers. So I don't want the alderman thinking that, hey, we're going to have $57 million more coming in the utilities budget this year. That's not the case because we budgeted that in, a part of that savings already. So the improvement is just from that $39 down to the $35.90 and dropping the ash price from $14 to $5. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, this savings is strictly from a contract point of view. It's not really discussing about what portion comes to the utility, what portion is really going back to the ratepayers. That discussion is pretty much out of that, and that number is really focusing on what value of the contract change is being made.
So he's speaking from the contract point of view. I'm speaking from the budget point of view because that's the bottom line.
Can you address the DNR permitting process at Elkhart?
Right. So just to follow up with that, we thought that was important enough to ask Arch to provide us a letter showing their commitment with our contract as it's proposed and what they can do and support that contract with their current operations. And they provided that letter, and we had that. I sent it to Tim today, and then I also provided a hard copy as well. And that letter basically states that Arch has that commitment. They have the capability with their current arrangement to supply us with our needs for ash for the next 5 years.
So
beyond that is a different issue. But we also are going to be renegotiating a contract, a new contract, and before that period gets to us. If they don't have that capability, we're going to be going somewhere else.
So if DNR does not give them the permit, that will have no, because I don't think they're going to give them the permit. It's too much backlash from the community out there. So when that happens, that's not going to have any impact on this contract.
Correct.
Alderman Redpath?
You know, when this started back in July, Alderman Donlin, Alderman Hanauer, and I took personal interest in it. We worked our tails off several dozen hours, if not hundreds of hours. We worked talking to different entities. We talked to Roger. We talked to the Arch folks. And, you know, no problem with your Griffin math, but I think that we went back to the point where we were trying to figure the difference between the $45 per ton to the $35.90 a ton. So, you know, those numbers are kind of mixed, and I understand where Alderman Turner's coming from, because if you hear three different sets of numbers in about a 10-minute period, it's kind of confusing. We know there's a substantial savings to the taxpayers, and one of the reasons that we decided to hold this, the part about how we're going to distribute the money, and I understand that we need to set aside funds for the EPA problems that we're going to have in the future, but we also need to make sure that the ratepayers get their cut, and we have made a substantial decrease with the restructuring, and with this amount of money, we need to, we'll talk about it again in the committee of the whole, I believe is when it's going to be rescheduled, but that's when we're going to make the difference on how the taxpayers are taken care of. There's no doubt about it that the ratepayers of this community, this is a victory no matter where we go tonight. It's a victory because we're reducing everything. So I encourage everybody to vote for this. I think it's a good contract. It's security for us. It's something that we won't have to lay in bed and worry about. Like they say, a bird in the hand's better than two in the bush. Well, the bush is a little thorny over there, I just want you to know. So we need to make sure that we take the best deal for the city, and this is it.
Any other questions for Dunn? Do Do you have Roger Dennison signed up to speak?
They got the handouts already. Got to keep that man working, you know what I'm saying?
It's about time he earned his money.
So Roger, if you wouldn't mind, for the record.
Yes. Roger Dennison, Foresight Energy. Appreciate the opportunity to come back up again. I'm sure you folks get tired of me too. But, I do appreciate the opportunity to come and speak about the coal contract. You're going to be getting some information passed around. I'll talk a little bit while it's coming out. But the first thing I want to state too, there have been a lot of numbers, but there's not one person that's disputed any of the numbers I brought. We've tried to dance around them and soft shoe around them and this and that, but the numbers themselves, clear up until the last meeting, are good numbers. So no one's rebutted the Foresight numbers. The Arch contract's going to cost over $32 million more than the Foresight proposal through 2020. Pretty simple. Mr. Brown and Mr. Davis's efforts 2 weeks ago was simply misguided. They artificially inflated the Foresight bid by more than $9 for 2 years. No one is reasonably suggesting that a bid of $30 a ton or Arch bid of $35.90 that CWLP will pay $39 a ton. I think that's what Alderman Fukinji was trying to get across. The price will not go up in arbitration. I'm the one, I have been through arbitration. So we can sit and say what we want to say, but it will not go up in arbitration. Now, I've got something I'll explain a little bit on that too. If you look at your page 2, that's in the handout, which basically says EIA coal prices, looks like this. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because, folks, I have, in previous times we've talked about it. My key point in this, and I heard it from Mr. Ziegler again last time, is Illinois Basin prices are this. And we've talked about this. Illinois Basin is clear in Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois. It is not Central Illinois coal. So when you look at it, and I've shared with this to you before, is on the left top is, I used his little presentation here. The first thing when he's talking about his coal prices, one thing you better ask is it steam coal that you use or is it stoker coal? They have two coal products there. Stoker coal is what they use at the prisons and state facilities. The bigger chunks of coal, it's always going to have a premium. They're the only folks up here with stoker coal in the market. So they have the market for stoker coal. So you better make sure whether we know it's steam or stoker, and you wouldn't because they didn't explain that. But the fair market for the value of that coal is not where he's got the contract prices, because again, you can pick any producers, whoever this Pier 1, 2, and 3 are. But the EIA fair market of price, we've talked about it, and I looked it up again, March 25th, is $32.20 in the Illinois Basin, and it is not the quality we have, it's not the quality they have. And if you look at the chart right below on the right side where I've got the 32.20 circled, the green line is the Illinois Basin. Basin, again, this isn't Central Illinois, this is the whole basin price, folks. And look at the green line is Illinois. So let's go back when we was told last week we started negotiating, or Arch said start negotiating in February of last year. Okay, price says it's $45.32 then, and then you come to March, it's down to $40.32. Then you come to this June or July that we're talking about here, where $39 was offered to the city. Okay, July 2015. Price shows here it's down to $34.45. Right before that, it may have been close to that. But keep in mind that point. That's that SJR article. I keep telling folks, when I saw that July 2015, there was a deal for $39 for 10 years. With Arch, I'm going, hello? The coal markets have done nothing but go down, folks. So you can look at that trend. You see where I put RFP there. I mean, everybody's talking about this predatory price. Unfortunately, it's the market price. I wish we were looking at a chart with 20 more bucks a ton. That's just not the case. So when you look at September, October, that's where I put RFP there. You can see where that price is. It's a little bit higher than this $32.20, but right now, today, it's $32.20. We talked about that before. If I take that $32.20 and change that to my price, that means I can only get $29.38 because I don't have that quality of coal. Arch gets $28.56. So forget all the math. It's just telling you it's going to be $2 to $3 or $4 less when you're talking Central Illinois price. So that's all I'm going to say on that page, folks. They used the wrong coal. If you flip to the next page, Doug sits here and John said it. I'm the guy that shipped coal in here before. If you look at this picture of the coal mine, over here to the left, these long panel-looking things, well, it'd be to your right, sorry. The long panel-looking things where I've got East Hornsby Longwall, that was low sulfur coal that we brought into lakeside units. It doesn't even exist now. This was Exxon. I bought that coal. 250,000 tons a year, 60,000 a couple years. It is 1.3% sulfur coal. It's only 10.3 BTU. Folks, when we bought that coal mine, we sealed that off. That coal has never been mined by us at this property. So they sit here and use that and say, I got to buy reagents for the power plant. I got to buy a silo to put it in, because truly, when people burned that coal, Coffeen, and these folks, it had a flux problem. It's, when you look at the fluid temperatures and the ash fusion temperatures, so it doesn't stick to the tubes, they put limestone in with it. Why? Everybody wanted the low sulfur. Okay? They wanted the low sulfur because they didn't have scrubbers. That's when this coal came in here. So they did put limestone in and had to do that. Coffeen did too. But folks, that is not the coal we bid. And the other part of their analysis, they jump over and use the coal we really bid. We use that BTU on this side of the mine that we really bid in here, folks. So all that reagent cost, all this capital, all that stuff, smoke and mirrors gone. And when you look at that, his numbers are wrong. He overstates the capital cost. And let's talk about the ash issue. Arch says it needs no permit to take the ash. That is correct. They need no permits to take the ash. We matched their ash price. I told you I'll get a permit, and we're prepared to take the ash. We did it at the same price as they did, folks. Now, if we can't take the ash, if these guys can't ship coal, are you going to go negotiate a new coal contract with them? No, your contract says you're going to bring me coal for the same cent per million BTU delivered sulfur equated to the property that you bid. It's on their watch. If I can't take your ash, I'll have the same thing in the contract. Guess what? I have ash contracts now, and they don't say, good luck, Raj, if you can do it. It says you're going to do it. So I'm the guy that's landfilling ash if I don't get a permit. So you can take that off the analysis, folks. It's not part of this thing. So that landfill cost is on me. It's not on you. Yet another reason they're wrong is when I sit here and listen in this negotiation and these guys say, I asked for a right of first refusal. We wouldn't even be sitting here talking about $100 million of savings had we not come to the table. Okay? And we're not willing to take it down another $32.5 million, but I've asked for right of first refusal. All I've asked is give me $250,000, give them, put in this contract, it's a proposed contract. That thing you're voting on tonight is not the gospel. It's a proposed contract. It can be changed and tweaked. You could put in there right now 250,000 tons of right of first refusal coal. It's still their contract, and it goes out for bids when they want right of first refusal coal. I bid on it. Anybody else in the world wants to bid on it, they can bid on this thing. They can match it. I don't know what that price will be because it's going to be back to whatever market price of coal is. So, okay, I'm saying for us doing this, why can't I have a little piece of the action here? And then you don't have to worry about whether one guy's making it or one guy's not. The coal comes in here. So when you look at that, they said, well, we're going to shut off your ash if you don't do it. And I'm going, hello, who's the customer here? We're not going to take your ash if I don't get all the coal for 2 years. Well, that's great. Again, you guys are the ones negotiating here, and I know how well that works. And talk to ADM, they don't have their ash going all to one place. I'll take my pro rata share of the 60,000 tons. Keep in mind, they do generate about 110,000 tons of ash, right? 60 of it's all you're talking disposing. We generate 30% less ash. So that could be worked out. We heard it again here tonight, and Alderman Turner and whoever else asked, they don't need a permit for your ash. They don't need a permit for 5 years of your ash because they built one RDA when that mine was built, and you can close them with ash. That's exactly what I'm doing with 2 RDAs down in Macoupin County that I've got 40 years of disposal. I'm closing an RDA, so RDA 1 can be closed with ash. What they're not telling you, and I've sat in the permit hearings, I know, and you can check with DNR, whatever. 1/1 of 18, they said if we don't have RDA 2, the mine's done. Because when you bring coal up from underground, you get clean coal you wash that you people are buying, And the rest of the stuff, the rock, the shale, the clay that nobody buys, it either is coarse, big product, or it's a fine slurry. They need that built for a fine slurry to put their slurry inside of it. I personally have permitted and built 5 of them in the last 7 years. So I know what an RDA is. So ask the question that way to service your 5-year contract. Do they guarantee you right now that they would be able to do that? And I'm not kicking them, folks. I've been through the permit process. We were going to do apples and apples, and we did apples and frickin' watermelons. So that's what needs to be asked. Can they service this contract for the 5 years through 2020 with that mine operating? Got nothing to do with your ash. You can close that RDA tomorrow. Now, you can't close the coal mine and take your ash because the contract, the permit says you got to be taking somebody's coal to take their ash. So if they don't have a coal contract, they can't take your ash anyway. But taking your ash is not the issue. So everybody that's smoke and mirrors here, that statement's a true fact, they can take the ash. It's not a true fact that without another RDA that mine will run 5 years. Ask them, though, maybe I'm wrong. Cost of those things, we talked to, I heard no capital needed. No capital needed for ash, right? I just told you the ash things. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You don't need say no capital for this? Again, I built 6 of these pigs in the past X amount of years, right? You can ask them the price tag, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you it's probably going to cost to build one $7 million before you'll ever use it. And you got to go bond them because DNR makes you put up money for bonding that says if you go out of business, we, the state, will pick it up. That bond, you have to ask them. I've not been to DNR to ask, but I'm going on the ones I built and saying this is 150 acres or whatever it is, 130. That bond's got a value probably $5 to $6 million. So whatever you're going to pledge to DNR, cash, cows, cars, whatever it takes to get $5 or $6 million in bonding, that also is on top of the $7 million. So there is capital required to service this contract for 5 years. And again, it's not coincidental the 2-year cooling off period we've kind of named this. 1/1/16 is the effective date of the contract. 1/1/18 is my RDA that I need to be built for the slurry. Not coincidental, that's 2 years, 2 years, folks. Now, when you sit here and talk about this thing, if they don't build it, what happens? What happens to these 51 jobs we keep talking about that are in Springfield, folks? And I got a few points on those 51 jobs. If you're going to pay over $32 million for 5 years, you're paying $630,000 a job. So those 51 people, you better put in this contract, make sure those Springfield people stay employed the whole time. Because you're paying $630,000 for each one of those jobs. You look at it per household, I told you guys last time this stuff's went up $150 million to these ratepayers from 07 to 2015, right? That was over $1,800 a household in your 55,000 households in Springfield. You look what's going here right now, the $32 million, you're going to hit them for another $800 a household in Springfield. You know, I heard said here last time, and it was smoke and mirror around the miners. And I love these coal miners up here, folks. They're some of the hardest working coal miners around. Unfortunately, we're competitors right now. And then people know what it took to service this contract when we signed it for $20.58 in arbitration. Anybody wants to know how that really works? You might ask me, been there, seen it, done it. But all I'm saying is that's where we're at here. Those people, to sit here and say that they're not going to let those people go, put that in the contract also. Something's got to happen. It's just production, it's coal mining, and the markets truly are trash right now. So it's an opportune time for you, tough time for all of us. So they've laid, they laid off 200-300 in Wyoming a while back. They've laid 3,000 off across the U.S. I'm not kicking them. I'm kicking the whole state for 10,000 coal miners being dropped to 3,000, right? It's a tough business. So, I mean, that's just it, but let's don't smoke and mirror that either, okay? Should be part of your contract then to keep these people. I looked at the economics of all this stuff, and when I sit and talk about these 51 families, I mean, you guys saw in this bankruptcy before they filed, the executives took an $8 million incentive to themselves, bonuses. Well, that's great, and then let's go get rid of some people, okay? Again, that's just business. They can run business the way they want. We talked about the economic factors. I went back and looked the last little over 7 years, they paid $14,000 in sales tax on coal in Sangamon County. I'm not great at math, But 14,000 bucks divided by 7, not a great big huge number we're talking about here when we're talking about sales tax on coal. Again, anybody can jump up and dispute what they want. The other thing, I sat here and listened to John Davis, 2011 said, we said the price is too low to bid. I reached out to Tony Rouser, John, and he's got the emails, and nobody would respond. I personally took him to CWLP in August so he could meet them folks, because I know the folks, he doesn't. Sent a bid September 20th-ish, and I think it was $6 less than the bid.
Debate on this.
So it's 38 bucks. We send a bid in, it's 32 bucks less, $6, again, not great at math, sounds like $8 million a year. And we get a letter back in October after the end of the RFP period. So no RFP was shipped. It was an unsolicited bid. Again, $8 million went away those 3 years, okay? So when people sit and say we said it was too low, no. The marketing guy sent it. We get a letter in mid-October that says, your bid's too high. And then again, I'm going, I'm not good at math, but isn't 32 or so cheaper than 38? Anyway, so I'll dispute the 2011 stuff. Nobody brought up that we're going to have 20% less slagging factors and fouling indexes when you look at it. Just the slagging factor in this plant with the stuff our coal's made of that's supposedly this tough coal to burn is 20% less when you look at the numbers on slagging factors, Doug. It's 40 to 60% less chlorine. You can make up all the things you want on chlorine. Chlorine eats up equipment, folks. And nobody brought up that when you look at the chlorine to sulfur ratios calculated in the coal, if you can get that ratio to a 3.0, you can sell gypsum. I don't think there's a cash flow stream in there for selling gypsum. Arch's coal is going to be a 5. Don't let you sell gypsum. This coal with the chlorine that's coming in here makes that a marketable product. Again, they can dispute it, not sell it, whatever they want to do, but that's the facts on the quality. The SO2 is lower than what we ship, so I don't care what we say there. We talk about grind on the coal. That was the big deal, right? You guys all paid for a state-of-the-art Foster Wheeler MBF mill. This thing's about speeding it up to grind, and I'm not a power plant operator. I did have a guy from Bulgaria sitting next to me last week when you shut the meeting down when I asked to come and talk and dispute this, because I'm not the guts of a power plant guy. I've crawled through boilers. I've done a lot of stuff. That grind is not even a contract rejection spec having there now. Ask what the spec is right now. You get to throw Arch out if the grind doesn't make it. There is none. It won't cost $30,000 at the best to use this coal with a grind. So they can say what they want on that. There's no contract specs on it. There's not enough difference in this coal to even know. And let's look at other folks that burn everybody's different coal. How do they do it? So I'll dispute that too. It doesn't matter. But I'm saying the reagent silos, coal handling controls, emissions testing you do anyway, mercury removal, we really couldn't talk about that. Look at the budget he just gave a while back, folks. It's got FGD in it. It's got SCR replacement in it. It's all the same stuff you do anyway. So, okay, a lot of it's run and maintain stuff you do there. So, again, whether we vote the right way or not, is telling you it's not there. And again, that coal we brought here before was burned into Lakeside. And I got some other problems with this. When I sit here and Arch says a couple of weeks ago when they were here they weren't informed about the bid, I look at the January 12th presentation that Mr. Brown put out. He said he forwarded the Foresight RFP proposal to Arch and asked for a revised bid under this contract reopener. Okay, sounds like they saw it. I would assume they do. That's how it works with an RFP. So you send it in and said, I don't know what the revised bid was. What was their first bid? Their first bid was probably this $39 we're talking about, folks. That was reported in the Journal Register 2015. And this is getting to be pretty key date for everybody. So when I look to say, well, what's the source of this $39? It's already plugged into the budget, okay? And if Arch could drop their price more than $3 just coming in here in less than a couple months span from the, the 39 to 36, so now we've got an interest in what the ratepayers of this city are doing. I'll ask you to turn to this chart right here, economic impacts. The one to the left you've seen before, and again, I apologize for all the numbers. I've worked a million numbers, and I've been here every freaking Tuesday since September, and I haven't lied to anybody on prices. And again, it's my math. I'm not the smartest guy at it, but I've worked at this. You go back to 2007, you've already seen this chart. $170 million increase from 2007 to 2016. And again, that's why I dispute the 2011. When I say reopeners were skipped, folks, no RFPs were sent out for whatever reason. You are where you are right now, and we are where we're going to go right now because I'm here. When you look at the right side at the charts, and I color-coded the bottom the same, the very top's just price per ton, folks. So the 4507, everybody knows. The $39 is Doug Brown's arch presentation in July 2015. Now 3660 I put in here. If you read that proposed contract, and I'm not kicking him for this, because I'd get benefits too if I'd sell hotter coal or whatever, but right in that contract, by dropping the sulfur penalty in half, you're giving the coal mine back another 46, call it 50 cents, whatever you want to call it. The BTUs that Doug used in his analysis, if you're going to use that BTU, you're paying another 20 cents, 7 cents a ton. So your real price you're paying in this proposal they're asking you to vote on tonight, you're going to be paying $36.60 a ton. Again, not kicking them for it, but I thought we were going to do apples and apples. So that one's just there for fun. The one next door is the $35.90 everybody's talked about. And the one to the right is the price that they would need to match over the 5 years. So if you go below that chart, I tried to keep colors the same because I get lost. So the 4507 is still the red column, the 39's the yellow, and so on. Those first 2 years, folks, and somebody can correct me because I've just learned watching the budgets and listening to these meetings and being here. And as the mayor said, the $39 is what's plugged into budget. The $39 is what fixed the bond thing, because you go back to 2014, you needed $8 million a year to fix your bond deficit and keep your debt ratios where they needed to be. So if you look at these first 2 years, when I'm showing going from 4507 to $39, just happens to be about $8 million. So when you look at it, that money's all went for bond default, folks. These ratepayers ain't getting a dime of that money. So I'm trying to make that clear. They get nothing there. Nothing from 4507 to 39. Zip. Then you go look and say, well, okay, we're going to go from there to the 3590 price, about $3 million. Doug sat here and said he's going to take half of it for an environmental fund, folks. That's what he wants to do. Again, not kicking him for that. Don't care. It's whatever's going to happen here. But again, trying to do apples and apples. And if I'm wrong, somebody can tell me. This is just a dumb boy sitting here, a coal miner, trying to figure this thing out. He's going to keep half of that. Okay? So there's a little bit in there for the ratepayers because he's splitting that. Now, if you slid clear over to what they should be matching on our RFP, there's a little bit more for the ratepayers there. So this $39 is a key number when you look at where this thing's going. And my thing is, hopefully you folks have seen this Ely report. Don't know if it's good or bad. All I know, if it's bad, somebody beat me over the head with it already. So I think it's been available to you. If not, I don't know how you can vote on it. You didn't go to arbitration to get somebody to tell you how this really works. You paid somebody to be an independent person to look at it. So hopefully you've looked at it. You don't have to rely on Arch or me or anybody else. You paid for somebody's opinion. I hope you had the opportunity. Your existing contract calls for the price to be set at the current fair market value for coal based on evidence of contracts of comparable coal. Okay? Have you been presented with any of this such evidence? Has anybody brought you evidence what that was besides the presentation you saw a couple of weeks ago? No. Arch made reference to a $40 coal price. Have you seen anything on that? Probably not. If it was, it's probably Illinois Basin. Like I told you, that doesn't matter. I can go get you a coal price from clear down in Kentucky, and I'm going to truck it up here to Sprngfield, Illinois. Right? I'm going to bet that either Arch or us will be the cheaper bid, because that's Illinois Basin coal generically, right? This contract, again, is for steam coal. Make sure you're talking steam coal. Well, the thing is, we don't know what it is. You don't know what it is when they're saying that. And the thing is, you got to present real evidence to get the fair market value coal. Last picture here, if you turn to this one. And all this is, folks, this is a picture of Illinois, okay? Unfortunately up here, and the ones we used to get gutted on, and all these folks sitting right back here in the back sat there with me and fought through it when we had to go through arbitration for $3 and split the baby for $1.50. That's what's going to happen in arbitration if it happens, sir. You know, there's our risk. The risk is, okay, what is it? And I'll talk about that in a bit. But right now, these are the only coal mines that are up here, folks. Look at all the other mines in southern Illinois. And when you look at this thing, you look at the right side, that little blue, this is the Illinois Basin. Again, I'll go get you a bid from Kentucky if you want, bring it up here with a truck. You've got to use central Illinois market prices. And the problem here with the city is why I'd give me right of first refusal on a couple 100,000 tons, put it in their contract. The only people up here to bid is us. We talk about competitive bids. This one hasn't worked real well for us. When I sat and listened to that presentation from these two fellas, they had no intent to use our coal. So I'm here tonight, again, I told you the first night I stood up, I probably shouldn't have because I knew it was going to be smoked out then. But again, nobody has talked about matching the prices we talked about. So you look here, I'll go back to the same thing. You look at Illinois, you look at Sangamon County, here's Montgomery and Macoupin, you drive 25 miles north of here, you're their power plant, you drive 25 miles south, you're in Macoupin County, Montgomery County. All that said, the backup supply, he says, well, we own 49% of Nighthawk, which Arch does. Okay, I know Steve Carter personally, runs mine, great guy, love him to death, really do. But when you look at it, you see the two arrows? Okay, go show me a bid, because you got to bring it to me at the same cents per million delivered, sulfur equated, and everything to the power plant. So you're going to go down here to Perry County or wherever it is. They're not all 4 lanes down there, folks. You're going to bring a truck of coal up here to Sprngfield. If you look at the history, and I don't think Phil got that, was at the plant when this happened, with the right of first refusal. Crown, they put it in there to keep. Crown didn't bid. Phil calls and says, I want some more coal. So Phil, you put in the contract, you've already got your requirements. The rest is right of first refusal. Well, we want it at that price. Phil, we put in there right of first refusal. Go get me a bid. Guess who my bid was against? Nighthawk. We fixed that next time the contract came around, right? Because I knew at that time if Crown didn't bid, there was only 2 players, Crown and us at that time when I was up at Elkhart. There's only 2 players now. So when you look at that.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please. We've given it plenty of time. He went 5 times over the limit. I think it's time to end it. No offense, Roger, we've heard a lot of this before.
Oh, it is offense, Mr. Red.
Well, I don't care if it is or not. I'm calling into this debate.
Okay.
If you'd wrap it up, please. But I appreciate your
I will, sir.
Clarifying things.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, again, all these guys had to do was to bury the 32 million savings. And the vote tonight, folks, what I'm telling you, if you voted no, it's going to go to arbitration, as we talked about. You'll get a full disclosure on it. This is to allow you to get the informed decision that you make. And at a minimum, folks, these folks, Arches went in into their bankruptcy for restructuring and got denied. Not kicking them for that either. I've been through that with the coal mine at Elkhart when I was up there. But it says they got to present another plan by May 13th. So I would at least defer this decision tonight to May 17th. And you know what? I won't come to the microphone again. But I would at least defer till May 17th because of the folks, you don't know what's going to happen then. And at least you know it's out there. It's nothing to me to table it till then. So I apologize for going on, and Alderman Redpath, I love you to death, you know that, and you're still pals, but I'm saying I apologize for going too long. I'm sorry my passion gets me, and if anybody's got any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Is there any questions for Mr. Dennison?
Scared to ask one.
Don't you be scared. Remember, I'm married to redhead person.
Yes.
I'm scared.
We appreciate you coming in and sharing your insights.
I appreciate you folks putting up with me, you know, since September, and you've all been gentlemen and ladies and everything, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next signed up was Bob Gardner. Like to come up? State your name and company or address, that'd be great.
I'm John Ziegler. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Arch Coal. First off, I want to say thank you again to the alderman, to the mayor for letting me speak at the last meeting, and certainly letting me speak again this evening. I'd like to be very brief. We believe that we've negotiated in the full faith of the contract, which requires a price redetermination. Doesn't require RFPs, it requires a price redetermination. We've done that. We've been busy with the city utility doing that for the past 14 months. That entire period is under consideration, and we believe we've met a fair price. We've agreed to amend the agreement to make that price a fixed price at $35.90. And I do want to make one clarification there. Under the agreement with the sulfur adjustment, the actual price the city will probably pay at the end of the year after the sulfur adjustment is actually about $35.40, as it turns out. There would be a 50-cent reduction on the sulfur. So as it turns out, when it's all said and done, the likely price after the sulfur is measured at the end of the year is about $35.40. This agreement gives you certainty for 5 years with no further price increases, no further price escalations. We have everything we need to operate our mine to honor this agreement for 5 years, including the ash disposal. I would like to address very quickly the bankruptcy comment. That is complete and utterly false. There has been no plan presented to the bankruptcy court that is complete and utterly false. We have to present a plan coming up forward. There has been no plan put forward. That was rejected, and we go back to the start. That's a false statement. On behalf of the 300 mining families, many of which are here that work at Viper, we've provided continuous supply of coal for over 30 years. We've done it safely. We've done it environmentally responsibly. We take the permits for our ash disposal and the slurry extremely seriously. We take the safety of our employees extremely seriously. We commit to you that we're going to continue to do the same throughout the balance of this 5-year agreement. We live here. We work here in the city of Sprngfield. Our children go to school here. We believe that we've become a very valuable partner to the utility itself. We work well together. Again, we've been reliable, and we'll continue to do so. I think all the other comments that I would have, I've addressed at the last meeting. I would only say if there's further questions for me, I'd be happy to address those.
Is there any questions for Mr. Ziegler? Alderman Turner?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere, maybe in the Wall Street Journal, that there had been a plan that was presented that the court rejected, and you guys had until May 13th to resubmit. So what did I read?
So specifically, the unsecured debt holders asked for more time to investigate the company. They have an interest in the company. The secured debt holders, which it will be the ultimate owner of Arch when this is finished, is largely going to be who will be our future owners, our future board members. But there has been no formal plan put in front of the court. The unsecured debt holders asked for an extension of time so that they could do further discovery themselves.
And so what impact does that have?
Specifically on Viper, it has zero impact.
I think specifically on Arch, because I don't know that you can separate the two, because what happens with Arch on a national scale at some point is going to trickle down to Viper. I mean, because I keep reading about all of these layoffs that are happening throughout the country, and at some point that's going to trickle down to Viper. So my question is, what impact does that have on Arch?
So the impact on Arch specifically will be that more time will be needed for the unsecureds to do their due diligence. As it relates to the monetary impact, as I mentioned last time, we currently have over $900 million of liquidity, literally $600 million in cash in our bank accounts, and pledged $275 million in debtor in possession financing. There will be no monetary impact to Viper. As it relates to Arch, the primary thing that the secured lenders and the unsecured lenders are worried about is, are these operations cash flow positive?
That's what I'm worried about too.
Viper is a cash flow positive operation. Black Thunder, the operation that was mentioned, what we're doing is right-sizing that workforce to remain cash flow positive in this current environment where PRB coal specifically the demand for it has dropped. So yes, we did make changes to that particular mine, the Black Thunder mine, and that was to keep that mine cash flow positive. Because the first thing that will happen is if you don't have a cash flow positive operation, that's when there will be issues. The operations that we're all running are cash flow positive operations. There are no issues at this point in time. As it relates to the plan, I can't speak to what will happen in May when we present the plan. We expect, based on the discussions with our secured lenders, that we're going to receive approval. But the fact is, no plan has been approved yet because there was additional time requested by one of the other outside parties.
Okay, and then my other question is about the permitting process that's going on out there right now. I know that you say it has no bearing on the operations, but what, and then I heard a comment earlier, sorry, Joe. I heard a comment earlier about slurry as opposed to ash. So what's the difference between slurry and ash? And
So slurry is what you get when you wash your coal through the preparation plant at the mine. And what doesn't get taken out of the preparation plant as coal to be sold will go to a slurry impoundment. And that's the difference between slurry and ash. The ash that we're referring to is the ash that comes out as the byproduct from combustion at the mine. We haul that ash back to the mine under our permits. And again, the way the current permits are, you can haul your own ash back, but you can't haul other companies' ash back. What we have at this moment in time is the ability to completely service this agreement for the full requirements for the full 5 years for the slurry and for the ash.
irregardless of what happens with the permit,
That's right.
with the permitting process.
But the fact is, it is factual that every mine, as they proceed, needs to continue to expand their slurry impoundment. So yes, we need to do that. So for beyond 2020, we certainly need to do that, and we certainly need to expand that impoundment, and we're working very diligently on that. And we certainly hope that as the good custodians of the environment that we've been, that we'll get that approved.
Okay, and this is my last question, I promised you. I know there's been a lot of the, and I don't want to use the word pressure, but a lot of the comments that have come to Alderman have been related back to the economic impact of the employees at the mine. I know that there was a letter of support that was issued on behalf of Sangamon and I believe
Yes.
Logan County. So this is my question. Can you, as we are about to vote on this contract, can you guarantee that there would be no layoffs at that mine?
So that's a very difficult question, and I'll tell you why. There are more customers than just the city at that mine.
Mm-hmm.
The city is it's the anchor tenant, if you will, at that mine. If we're able to continue on with the volumes that we have with the city and with our other customers, there should be no layoffs at that mine. If, however, the volume gets cut back and the city's the only customer, I can't tell you what would happen then. Again, as we sit here today with this agreement, I can tell you that for the years of 2016 and for the years of 2017 and for most of 2018, the mine is close to fully committed. Fully committed meaning those tons are committed with customers.
So what you're saying is that if we are basing our decision partially on the fact that the economic impact, we could still vote yes to give you the contract, but if others decide to take their business elsewhere, there would possibly can still be layoffs at the mine.
There could, but there could also be an expansion of jobs, quite frankly. With the current customer base that we have, that we're talking to, we think actually there's a possibility to expand the production at the mine along with this agreement. So I'd say it's just as likely.
Hold on, why would it, if you're telling me, see, this is my problem. I keep getting all these conflicting statements. It's like everybody that comes to that podium says what they think we want to hear at that point in time. So you just told me, and I'm really not trying to be argumentative, I'm just trying to understand. You just told me that if the city of Sprngfield becomes your only contract, then there could possibly be layoffs. But then in the next sentence you said that you could possibly expand and hire more people. So where's the connection between those two things?
The way the coal contracting works is typically you contract coal into the future for some period of time, whether it's for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, et cetera. So as we sit here today, we're basically fully contracted at the mine, meaning all the tons that we believe that we need to produce are fully contracted for the next roughly 2.5 years. So as I stand here today, if the city agrees with the agreement that we've put forward, there should be no impact. But I can't tell you 4 years from now if something happens that we wouldn't have a layoff. That would be silly, and it would be untrue.
So where do you get to your statement that you could expand?
If there's an increased need from other customers. So the other issue here is this is a requirements agreement. If, for example, there's actually a La Nina summer, which is predicted, which basically means it'll be theoretically a hotter, drier summer than normal, the demands for the utility itself could potentially go up 200,000 tons. If the demand from the utility itself goes up 200,000 tons, we're obligated to meet that demand. That's part of the agreement. We have to serve every single ton that the utility requires. So if at the same time that the demand goes up for the utility because of a La Nina summer, it could be that our other significant customers as well, they may see an increase in demand. I can't tell you for sure, but I think at this point, to tell you that we would have layoffs in the near future, the answer to that is absolutely not. Absolutely not during this commitment period.
So you're saying for the next, this runs till 2020, so for the next 2020,
No.
absolutely not.
No, I can't say that because I don't
But
know.
that's what you just said, this
No,
period.
I said I can't tell you what's going to happen beyond 2018. My contracts are committed fully through 2018. I have coal I have to sell still in 2019 and 2020 to other parties.
Okay, you just.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I think what Alderman Turner's getting at, I think they said there's 51 families that live in Springfield. Could you guarantee that those 51 families would not be laid off, or the workers would not be laid off, since we're your main supplier?
Are you requesting that specifically be a part of the agreement?
Right.
I guess that's quite frankly, that's a tough question for me to answer without speaking with an outside attorney, because there's all kinds of rules around equal employment and other kinds of considerations. So I don't know that legally I can make that promise.
Well, if you check into that, I think that's a priority for all of us, I would believe.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Fulgenzi?
Yes.
This 3220 that he's got listed here as the Illinois Basin fair market price, is that 3220 accurate?
So when you look at that, you can't just look at the coal price. There's transportation involved in that.
No, I'm not talking about transportation. I'm on just the coal price. That's what this is. Just the coal price. And it's a fair market price, not a predatory price. So is that accurate?
So I think you have to clarify the issue here. Fair market price is determined between when we started the negotiations, which were the end of last January, beginning of February, and now. The contract doesn't call for a fair market price at this moment in time. It calls for looking at actual commitments that have been made by utilities. What we presented last time in a chart was from competitor reports. Those are publicly available on their websites as to what their prices are for 2016. The contract calls for the fair market price of our agreement to be determined during our negotiation period, which is extended from January until basically when we came to a settlement, over about 14 months' time. During that time, those competitors came up with those prices I showed. That's the fair market price that we have to consider.
It's not the 32, but it was in March.
That's correct. That is not the price we should be
fact that
considering.
your pricing was due from January to March, it doesn't include the price in March?
It certainly would, but it's over that whole span of time. It would be for commitments.
Is that from January to March?
It would be, yes, all of those, if this were to go to arbitration, all of those points would be considered. Because the arbitrator would take what the contract says.
It's all around $33 from January to March.
Again, you can't simply take that price, sir, because it's transportation adjusted. If you took the transportation and added it to that, you'd actually have a higher price than what we're talking about right now.
I know, but what we're talking about is coal price, not transportation.
That's right, but to get the delivered price into the unit, you have to include the cost of transportation. The cost of transportation on that coal that you're looking at would be substantially higher. It would probably actually be 4 to 5 times higher than the transportation from the Viper mine.
I thought,
Yeah, we
I
have
thought
to
it was
look at all the
$1.30.
expenses associated with the delivery of coal to the mine, or to the plant.
I thought Foresight's price included transportation.
It may have,
Yeah, it did, it included transportation.
which is not in that number you're looking at.
It seems to me, by looking at all those numbers, we're being asked to educate ourselves within a matter of months, maybe 1 month, month and a half, whereas all the people that made up these numbers, it took them years to go to school and understand it.
It is very
And I think
confusing,
it's
sir.
very unfair, and for that reason, I'll vote to send it back to arbitration.
You're making a motion, is that what it is?
No,
Oh,
we'll wait till
okay.
it comes up.
Okay,
Mayor, call the question.
okay. There's a second?
Second.
Would you restate the motion, please?
So the motion is to approve a restated and amended contract for sale and purchase
Call
of...
for a roll call on the motion to close the discussion. I think there's
Okay.
some aldermen that haven't spoken yet. I'd like to call a roll call on that motion to call the question, and give any alderman that hasn't spoken yet an opportunity.
Is there someone who wants?
Roll call to, and it's second, go ahead and take roll call to call the question.
Alderman Redpath?
Aye.
Alderman Senor?
What are we calling the question on, please?
The vote.
To vote.
Calling the question on the vote.
To vote. To vote.
And
So it
and
closed the
Alderman-
discussion.
Alderman McMiniman, what is your pleasure on this, sir?
I just want to make sure that every alderman has a chance to speak on this issue before we terminate the discussion.
Okay, thank you. No?
No.
No.
Yes. Alderman Jobe?
Yes.
Alderman Benneman?
No.
Alderman Tyler?
Yes.
Alderman Donlin?
Yes.
Alderman Hanauer?
Yes.
I believe
Six yeses and 4 noes, Mayor.
I believe it takes a supermajority to terminate.
Okay.
So the
Correct.
discussion
That's correct.
continues.
So Alderman McMiniman, do you have anything you would like to add?
I'd like to acknowledge the outstanding job that Mr. Dennison has done on behalf of Foresight in advocating for Foresight. This is a tough decision, and we can take a short-term horizon, medium-term, long-term. I think one of the premises for the administration's recommendation on this, and the administration's been working on this for over a year now, or began a year ago when you took office, roughly, is that we want to have 2 coal mines competing for our business in 5 years. And that's a harsh position for Foresight at the moment, but it'll be for the city's long-term interest, it's going to be positive to have 2 competitive mines 5 years from now. So that's the premise one of the premises for my yes vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion?
Call the question.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to call this question. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. So again, to reiterate, an ordinance approving a restated and amended contract for sale and purchase of coal with Arch Coal Sales Company, Inc., including the terms of the 2016 coal price redetermination for the Office of Public Utilities. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-132 on final passage.
So moved.
Approval. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have one question. The issue about the guarantee with...
Can't. We've called. Isn't that correct?
We will follow up on that with the employment of these citizens.
There can be no more discussion at this point, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I can't, okay then.
Well, we'll follow up on that.
Okay.
So if you'd signify by voting yes, the voting is now open.
Alderman Jobe, how do you vote?
No.
Alderman Jobe votes no.
The motion passes, 7 voting yes, 3 voting no. Next item on the agenda. Next item on the agenda is 2016-131, an ordinance amending Chapter 38, Section 38.35A of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended to decrease the minimum professional services contract amounts for which city council approval is required. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-131 on final passage.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we hold this in committee.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion to move it back to committee? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is number 2016-145, an ordinance authorizing an additional payment of $32,000 for a total amount not to exceed $182,000 to Livingstone, Mueller, O'Brien, and Davlin PC for defense of workers' compensation claims from March 1st, 2015 through February 29th, 2016. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-145 on final passage.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Jobe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the motion passes, 10 voting yes, none voting no. Next item on the agenda is 2016-148, an ordinance amending Chapter 36, Section 36.35 of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended pertaining to appointments and promotions. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-148 on final passage.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Jobe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the motion passes, 7 voting yes, 3 voting no. Next item on the agenda is agenda number 2016-150, an ordinance authorizing a decrease in the number of Class C1 liquor licenses by 1 and authorizing an increase in the number of Class B1 liquor licenses by 1 for Shri Hashban Dev Corporation, DBA Supermart, 901 East Cook Street.
I have a question. Oh, there has to be a motion first.
Yep. Is there a motion to?
Motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for discussion.
Okay. This is my question. Is this, so does this include the, those small one-serve bottles?
Airplane bottles?
Yes.
Because
Todd, if you'd like to come up,
bottles and you
please.
got the half pints and you go to the pint.
So does it include just the half pints and the pints, or does it include the airplane bottles?
I believe this ordinance is to just increase the spirits. There was no clarification on the bottle sizes.
Right.
Any other discussion? So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Jobe, how do you vote?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
The motion passes with 7 voting yes, 2 voting no, and 1 voting present.
Noted.
Next item on the agenda is number 2016-151, an ordinance authorizing addendum C to extend the date of redevelopment agreement to October 1st, 2016 with the Salvation Army, previously authorized by ordinance 364-11-11 and amended by ordinances 315-09-13 and 214-06-14. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2016-151 on for discussion.
Move for discussion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
I think there are some folks that want to speak on this, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. First, we'll go with the presentation, if that's all right. I'd ask Jim Moll to come forward to give an overall picture of the rail corridor since that came into play with regards to the request for the Salvation Army to...
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, can you explain to us what the correlation between this discussion that we're going to have for the rail and the moving and extending the agreement with Salvation Army and they're moving to Gold's Gym? Explain that for the people.
Well, it's
in the
actually
audience.
the movement to the Gold's Gym. With the extension, we can vote for the extension to support the Salvation Army, and we can discuss the movement later.
But how does
How this is all pertinent is with regards to the rail corridor, which Jim Moe from Hanson Professionals will show you, is the domino effect that the Salvation Army's movement will have on the corridor, but more importantly, the impact the rail corridor could have on the Salvation Army.
That's what I want the residents that are here tonight to understand, that if the moving of the Salvation Army is really pertinent to the rail corridor coming through there, or if there's some other cause for the Salvation Army to move to Gold's Gym.
Okay.
I think I can answer some of those questions.
Okay.
My name is Jim Mall. I'm with Hanson Professional Services, 1525 South 6th Street here in Springfield. I'm the project manager for the Hanson for the Sprngfield Rail Improvement Project and also for the Springfield Mass Transit District on the location of their new multimodal facility.
If you could pull the mic up closer so they can hear it home, we'd appreciate it.
Is that better?
I would. Is it better? Can you hear out there all right?
I've got a slide here that shows the area that's under consideration.
Can you turn? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And some other slides that are similar to this that I'll talk about as we get to them, if I can figure out how to make the slide thing work. There we go. We've been working since back in the 1920s to find a method to consolidate rail traffic through Springfield and also to build a multimodal facility. I'm relatively new to this project. I've only been working on it since the late 1980s. One of the things that we've really focused on this project, one of the things that we've really learned is that we need to keep focused on the final solution to the project so that we have something that works well for our community, but also remain flexible that we can take advantage of alternatives when they present themselves. When we first set the alignment for the rail corridor, the new 10th Street rail corridor, when we first set that back in 2010, we purposely avoided the building that the Salvation Army has currently purchased and plans to renovate. It's shown in this block here in yellow on that figure there. We purposely avoided that building. At that time, it was leased by Holy Fan. It was owned by someone else. We avoided it in order to minimize the cost of land acquisition and in order to minimize the cost of demolition that would go with that building. But while we avoided the building itself, we could not avoid impacts to the property. We made that clear to the owner at the time, and we've made that clear to the Salvation Army since they purchased the project. Some of those impacts to that property include that small portions of that property currently used for parking will need to be acquired for the rail improvements project. Also, because we're building an underpass on Jefferson Street, that property will no longer have access directly out onto Jefferson. So they will lose access onto Jefferson Street. In addition to that, there will be changes to Washington Street that will affect their access to the south entrance to that building. And again, we're looking at the building that's in the upper right-hand corner of that yellow shaded box there. It's the 3-story building on that block. Another change will be obviously the increase in rail traffic on the corridor back behind it, and access to the east side of the building, which is the rail side, will be eliminated, not only for the Salvation Army themselves, but for emergency vehicles, fire trucks and whatnot. So there will be no access to the east side of the building either. We understood that these would be impacts to that property. We explained that to the Salvation Army, and I think that they understood that, but their options at that point were relatively limited. Now, at the same time, the Mass Transit District was doing the planning for their multimodal facility, the area, the 2-block area that's outlined in green there. Their goal is to create a hub that would accommodate their bus transfers for the city buses, also for intercity buses, Greyhound buses, Amtrak and high-speed rail trains, taxis, and airport shuttle, car rental, all would be collected at this one location so that all of our modes of transportation can interchange at this one spot. There would also need to be significant parking in order to support that facility. Now, while we did this, the Regional Planning Commission took a look at the opportunities for transit-based development around this new multimodal hub. They produced a report that was very well received by the community. And a lot of people in our community kind of took this as the vision of what they would like to see develop around this new multimodal hub and help invigorate and get development going both along 9th Street and 11th Street in that area. Now, as we looked at the parking requirements for this multimodal facility, it became obvious that it wasn't just the multimodal facility that we need to consider parking requirements. When the new multimodal facility is built, the county will lose the parking shown in yellow on this figure. That's currently county employee parking. Once we build the multimodal, all of that parking will be lost to the county. The Prairie Capital Convention Center has intentions to expand in the future. That will increase their parking demand. To compound that problem, the area they want to expand to is south of Adams Street, which is currently the county visitors parking. So that parking will also have to be replaced. Horace Mann is going to lose some of their parking, and this is probably the more immediate concern. The area shown in yellow on this drawing, the part of the new multimodal hub that's colored in yellow, that's currently Horace Mann's parking. They will lose that when we construct the new multimodal facility. It's their feeling that there is no place to replace that parking. They feel that there would be need for them to build a new parking garage on their property, a significant cost. And this has made it very difficult for the SMTD to acquire that parcel because there's no place at this point, according to Horace Mann, for them to move to. Their concerns are the most immediate because the SMTD is working to get the buses off of the city streets. Where the buses exchange now, it's congested, it's dangerous, it's undesirable. They need a place to get their exchange off the street. So their plan is to get it on this block that they've already begun to purchase prior to construction of the multimodal facility so that at least we can have the bus exchange location. Now, one of the alternatives that presented itself to deal with the immediate Horace Mann issue, there's other Horace Mann parking that's also necessary when we build the rail project, so that we're also going to take more parking from Horace Mann as shown in the area in yellow once we build the rail project. But one place we looked at to potentially replace the Horace Mann parking is in the half of the Salvation Army property, what's now vacant, what's now parking lot. Well, obviously that further decreases the value and the usefulness of the Salvation Army's property. So we had all of these issues that were working together at the same time, when we had numerous different public agencies as well as private businesses that were going to be affected by this. So last November, we pulled together a meeting that included the county, SMTD, the Salvation Army, both Salvation Army facilities, because there's two separate facilities out there, Horace Mann, the Prairie Capital Convention Center, the Regional Planning Commission, and the city, and got everybody together and talked about what their needs were, what their future plans were, and how both the rail project and the multimodal project would affect those future plans. And then we assembled some conclusions from that. And one of our first conclusions was that the multimodal facility is not just an SMTD project. It is a multi-jurisdictional project with a number of agencies that are affected, plus the potential for private developers to be affected. But that's probably going to be a longer-term project, and it's going to require a lot of construction money, and it's going to take a lot of parking. But SMTD has the more immediate need, and that they need to get the buses off the street, eliminate that undesirable on-street interchange location they have now, and they need to get that done before their $1.7 billion grant that they've got for that work expires next year. Now, in order for the SMTD to acquire the block, they've already purchased portions of the block, the area that's where the Greco sales is now. But in order to accomplish acquiring that block, they need to acquire that half of the block from Horace Mann. Horace Mann has nowhere to go. So we have a problem with what to do with the Horace Mann parking. The Salvation Army property on 11th Street will eventually need to be relocated because we'll be taking their loading and access facilities for the rail project, but that's an issue that's going to come up further down the road. The other thing we needed to consider, and one of the conclusions that we came to, is that the blocks north of the new multimodal facility, including the area where the Salvation Army is the best areas for the potential transit-based development that we've all talked about. So we ended up making a recommendation that there be an alternative location found for the Salvation Army. That the area shown in yellow here, that Salvation Army facility, that it be relocated, and that block be used to replace the Horace Mann parking. The advantages that this presents is it gets the Salvation Army out of a location that is going to continue to change and deteriorate from their standpoint as the adjacent projects are developed.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just a point of a question. When did you make that recommendation that you just mentioned?
I think that was sometime in February.
Thank you.
February 2015 or 16?
February of this year. So we get the Salvation Army out of there, and what's probably not going to be a serviceable location for them in the future, even though they could potentially stay there. As I mentioned before, there's a number of problems associated with that property as the rail project develops. It would also provide an immediate location for Horace Mann's displaced parking, which would allow SMTD to purchase the Horace Mann parking lot that they need to locate their bus transfer facility. And it also does a lot to help enhance the opportunities for transit-based development in the future. Now, when we made this recommendation, we did not discuss alternative locations for the Salvation Army. Given the number of players that were involved, the number of public agencies, the cost of the various facilities, Salvation Army's deadline in order to proceed with their project that they'd already begun to do the remodeling on, all of these factors, we felt it would be very difficult to come up with a solution that would address all of these problems in the short time frame that we had. But the mayor indicated that he would be willing to take this challenge on to see if he could find a solution that would balance the needs of all the agencies involved there and come up with a solution that works best for the whole community. So that's how we kind of came to our recommendation that we look for an alternative to find a place for the Salvation Army. It appears that a location has been found. I was surprised that we were able to pull anything like this off. But I can give you information on the background of how we got to that recommendation if there are any questions.
Well, I don't think there's any questions, but there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of things that have been discussed and a lot of ground that's been traveled, and I don't think the information's been shared quite properly, and I'm not scared to say that. And I've said it in the newspaper, I've said it on the radio, and I'm going to stick by the way that this decision has been arrived at, and then the lack of respect for the residents to where the Salvation Army, I know this is not your problem, but the lack of respect for the area to where the Salvation Army would like to move to the residents in those places, I think it's just very disrespectful, to say the least. And I would like to hear from some of those residents if they would like to come and speak at this time, because I think the end game is, it's been put out that the Salvation Army is already going to move to Gold's Gym, and I don't even think that all of the parameters have been covered and the grounds have been covered and discussed, and I don't think it's come to that point yet.
Alderman Senior, may I ask one more question of Mr.
Yes,
Ball?
sir.
You mentioned that a recommendation was made in February of 2016, but earlier you said that all the parties got together to discuss the parking problem earlier in time. What month did that take place?
That was last November.
Okay, thank you.
2015?
2015.
Anything else? Thank you.
Would you like the major from Salvation Army come up first, or after the individuals that signed up to speak?
Yeah, I'd like the major to speak first, and then the residents would be able to react to that.
Major ordered, if you state your name and organization, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman, City Council. Major Stephen Woodard, Core Community Officer and in charge of the Sprngfield, Sangamon County. Been here for 3 years. The Salvation Army, as you know, in this whole process has kind of been a shocking thing. It's been in the news as well about how we wanted to proceed. But the Salvation Army is committed to serve this community. Came to this community 1886, 130 years celebrating this year. We'll continue to do so, continue to try to help people in the best way possible. I think an unfortunate way of looking at this, it just keeps coming up as the Salvation Army's shelter. But the Salvation Army has so much to offer, and it's as a core community center is what we provide. We provide church services, we provide spiritual assessment, we help families through food assistance, through utility assistance, we help seniors program. We had just 30 children in our facility tonight that we helped send to camp. We do a lot of things for children, families. We served over 2,000 individuals at Christmas time that needed a basket, Christmas, a hope. So there's a lot of things the Salvation Army is doing and will continue to do and want to do that. With this proposal that was kind of brought forward to us, it allows us to do a lot of things that weren't available in that location. The Salvation Army looked for 45 locations before it came to the one on 9th Street originally. But looking at trying to find a place where families can be united, where hope and healing can begin. And I look at the opportunity for this place to come forward. I look at maybe the potential of having more Xavier bishops to come from a Salvation Army, learning to play basketball in this kind of facility, these kind of places that would be available to do something that can provide hope and healing in the future. So the Salvation Army is committed, has continued to do that, and as you look at these TIF funds, we're continuing to try to serve, and I'm looking at trying to serve for at least another 130 years or whatever it might be in this community, to do so with all faithfulness. And our goal has been heart to God and hand to man in this community, and we will continue to do so. And I'll take questions or thoughts about it.
Alderman Redpath?
Major, appreciate the work you do for the community. I'd just like to ask, you've read some of the comments in the paper about some of the issues that the residents around there have. How do you think that you could deal with that kind of situation and maybe remedy the problem or give them some comfort knowing that that this is the right move?
Sure. Thank you. The question with that, I mean, what we're looking at trying to do even coming up this week, I'd like to have an open house at that location on Saturday from 10 to noon, and the potential of next Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30 for people to come in from that community. But to talk about those kind of things, come and see what the vision is. The Salvation Army has been in this country and continues to do this in its programs and core community centers in communities. We moved from a location from a building that was 1957. We ran a shelter in that facility, also ran children's programs and senior programs in that facility. We protected those kids, we protect those seniors, we protect those people, and we do that day in and day out and have done that. We're just in a transition period right now when we had to close, unfortunately, a shelter, whereas our city needs people that need to have a place to provide hope and healing in that opportunity. Our goal is also to work with that community to be able to provide a place that people find safe and to be able to say, that's my Salvation Army. That's where I want to be able to go. I'd like to work with community leaders for that. I think we could provide some opportunities even with the police department, having maybe a substation that's in that area, a presence to also kind of secure some of those areas that people in that community might feel a little safer. But the thing is that a lot of times I find that people don't realize who all come for the Salvation Army. We think it's a ward issue, but you know the Salvation Army serves all wards in this community, and we'll continue to do that. But how do we do that in the best way possible is to reach out and be community-minded, to communicate together, but to answer some of those questions. And I think having that community come and look at that facility, see what we'd like to be able to do, see that they might come to their church home to see what we offer, and that we've been doing it in other communities around the country, I think would be helpful. Yeah.
I have a comment or question. Since you want to be such a good neighbor, did the Salvation Army go into the neighborhood and say, hey, we're thinking about moving here? What do you think? Did you do any reconnaissance in that matter, or you just waited until the announcement was made and then now we're trying to backtrack and say, you know, we're going to be a good neighbor and we think this will be a good fit for the neighborhood?
No, to answer your question, we did not go in the community to ask that.
So how do we get the feel of the residents to say, you know, if it's going to be a good fit for them? We're just putting it in their neighborhood saying, here, take this, we're going to make it a good fit for you, and some of them may not. What if some of them don't want it in the neighborhood?
Well, I think that what I find, I've been with the Salvation Army for 25 years, built a number of different programs throughout that area, and every place we move to, someone tells me, I don't want you in my backyard, don't want your people helping and serving that. And I find out what's unfortunate is that we don't know who we serve. We don't know who's being served by the Salvation Army that comes in. It's neighbors, it's friends and family that continue to come into the Salvation Army. And there's a lot of perception that goes that way. And we find out later, and I've had a lot of families come up to me and say, you know what, I'm sorry, Major, because I didn't know. I had a perception about what was going on. And you really have helped me. You've helped what you want to be able to do, not just me, but the Salvation Army, to provide an opportunity for someone to change, this opportunity to move forward out of a tough situation.
Let me give you a dilemma I have. There's a park that's being used daily by kids, young kids, that play in the park. They play basketball. They might go and just enjoy the park, sit on a park bench. Unfortunately, I'm just talking semantics here, but what if there's an incident? How do we protect those kids that are in the park? What's the barrier? What's the protection that we're going to give these people that are using the park right now?
Well, I think the question is even a greater thing. It's a community thing. How do we protect kids in any park in the city? How do we do that to control that? I mean,
I'm specifically there to Comer Cox Park right now. I don't want to make it general. I want to make it specific because it seems like you all have already set in stone that we're going to move the Salvation Army, and that is the premise of my point. You all have already said we're going to move this here, and there's been no discussion with the residents and with the city council. I mean,
I can answer that question for you.
This is the first that we've openly heard it in public was Friday when it was announced here in this chambers. And, that's the kind of the problem that I have with the sharing of the information and how it got to this point. We should have been having these conversations 2-3 months ago.
Well, let me, before you do that, Mayor, the fact that how we got, I want to let you know that the Salvation Army didn't ask to move. We got approached and saying that the Salvation Army was going to need to move, or the city might need to acquire a property within 7 to 10 years. So I have to tell you how I represent everybody in this city as a whole. I have to provide those type of services, and I have to look what's best. I mean, obviously, yes, I would have loved to work further, to be able to discuss some of those situations, and then the mayor can maybe talk about how that was and how that communication came about. But I have to tell you, I love the people of this community. I'll continue to serve the people here, and I try to do that the best way possible. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to do that, but I was consulted to not move forward, to share some of that information on behalf with the mayor and moving forward.
With regards to the move, a couple items that you threw out there. One is, it doesn't matter where the Salvation Army goes in the community, there's objection. Point made was the 45 sites they looked at. Corporation Council and myself, we looked at just 5 sites. I can't imagine them even wanting to, being gracious enough to open themselves up to this position again. It took them 45 sites, and they had to settle on a building next to a railroad track that's going to have 80 trains a day coming through there, within like 10 feet of the building. I wouldn't want any structure that close. But regardless of that, what's important to know is we approached them, and they said, okay, they would look at sites. So we looked at several sites. Anybody that's in negotiations know that once the city is in play for purchasing a property, the price escalates. And a point in cases when my dad was mayor, the Lincoln Colored Home, an individual owned that. When he found out they were working on an arrangement where the NAACP would purchase that building using city funds, once they found out the city was involved, they doubled the price. So that's why you do not let it known what properties you're looking at with regards to that. So I did ask a Salvation Army, once they decided on Gold's Gym property, they needed to run the numbers. What they purchased, again, in my opinion, I think they overpaid for it. I think they were taken advantage of. They paid $3.4 million for that building over there, that close to the tracks. It's going to take them $6 million probably to renovate, and that has asbestos issues. They wanted to put a gym in there. They could not put a gym in there because they could not raise enough money to do that. And it's to be a community center. Everybody gives it the stigma of being a shelter. Like Major Woodard said, it's a community center. If you don't believe us, look at Quincy. Springfield, Illinois had the chance to have the Kroc Center in Springfield, but we denied it. That facility that was picked out for North Grand and across from the cemetery, the city council denied it. That was a facility that should have been in Springfield. Now it's in Quincy. So look that up. What we're trying to do is support the Salvation Army with the community center. Everybody's talked about we need a community center. Even before I was a treasurer, when I was in banking, we wanted to have a community center on Springfield's east side. This gives us the opportunity to have that and have it fully staffed through the Salvation Army. But it's going to save them, I think, millions of dollars. It already has a sprinkler system. It has a gym floor in there. Everybody that's been in there knows the capability or the facility itself. But the other side of it is it's going to be open to the public, where before you had to have a membership. So it's open to the public. I talked with Major Woodard if he'd be open to having a NPO. I talked to Chief Winslow to alleviate the concerns of the residents. I don't care what neighborhood you're in, I'm always concerned, as the Major pointed out, in everybody's safety. So where they are located doesn't alleviate that fact, but that's one of the options we're looking at. But they're going to open up their facility to the community. We'll have an open house where individuals can come and visit, and I think that's what needs to happen, like you said, the communications. When we found out about it was Thursday night. Salvation Army said they had the approval through their hierarchy to move with the Gold's Gym property. We had the news conference Friday, and that's how we got to this point. So we made the announcement Friday so the aldermen could discuss it tonight, and then we're willing to postpone that for 2 weeks. But regardless, we're taking a vote 2 weeks from now, either to move to Gold's Gym, or if the council wants, we will stay in the current facility, but I'm going to present an ordinance that protects them where there's not going to be an exercise of eminent domain by any city council into the future. So those are the two options. It's either Gold's Gym or the current location, but the city council is going to support one or the other.
And see, that's my main point. You're just saying it's Gold's Gym, it's the only place that they can move. And, you know, I don't think that's fair to those residents that live over in that area, because we're deeming that the only good place, and nothing against the Salvation Army, because I grew up at my grandmother's house at 1104 North 11th Street when the hay homes were there. But we're deeming that this is the only good place for the Salvation Army to move, and I think that should, you know, that's just a misnomer.
That's not a misnomer. That's a fact because of their financial constraints they currently have. The $1 million that was supposed to come from the state budget, I don't believe you received that, have you? So that's $1 million less than that we're counting on. This facility, thanks to Illini Bank, makes it affordable for them to move in that facility. This facility is valued, I think the market appraisal was $3 million, and they are getting it for $1,250,000. You cannot replicate that. It's, I think, 2004, built in 2004, somewhere around there. It's a newer structure. It's a lot better than that building on next to the railroad tracks. But I just want to let the council know the administration is presenting those two options. I think Gold's Gym's the right way to go. You saw the impact it has for our community. It's what's in the best interest. It's a win-win for everybody. I think it's a win-win for the area around it. It's going to improve the area instead of having a dilapidated structure like we have plenty of those. We want to make sure it's a community center that's been bandied about for 20 years.
Well, you can't steal my line because I have to talk on the other side too. The good point about this is that something is moving into the building, and the building won't become a dilapidated structure, and it is providing a valuable, necessary resource. So do you understand the dilemma that I'm having as an alderman for that area? And I have to represent my constituents and the residents, but I also have to look out for the economic development and awards. So, you know, it's quite a dilemma that's being presented here tonight.
Alderman Senior, if you don't mind, just a couple questions about the Salvation Army itself. I've been here 9 years, and I've seen a number of these things come through. When you guys went to move the last time, we had the issue with Helping Hands not that long ago. We've had a number of issues, and Alderman Senior, I completely agree with you. It's always going to be that when something like this is coming into an area, the people in that area immediately wonder what it's going to do to them. It happens every time. And you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do by representing the people that you were elected by. My question would be to go, you know, like we've asked in the past, I guess the main concern is not necessarily the people who are coming to you to get a leg up and to improve themselves and to be better. We're more concerned about the people who are the troublemakers, the ones who are not going to improve, that are just coming there to have a hot in a cot, so to speak, and then get right back out the next day and go about whatever it is they do all day. How many incidents do you have per year at the Salvation Army shelter where you have violent issues where you ban people from the building? Is that something you can talk about?
I think within the last, obviously we haven't been open in this last year with it having to close, and I've only been here for the 3 years to that point, but even looking at some of those, maybe a handful. that I can answer that would be a part of that, because I want to let you know about, it is not just a hot bed and a cot for us, or hot meal and a cot. The fact of what we provide for our shelter, what our requirements are, people that have to want to make a difference. They save money while they're in that location. They're getting business skills, whether they're working on resumes. Our goal is to help get them back into a sustainable or sufficiency kind of position. And you're right, there are some people that, till the day they die, will continue just to want and give me what you have to have. But our shelter is working with individuals, and our goal is we have great staff that have been there. Unfortunately, I had to lay them off because we had to close. There was no place to go. But we'll be increasing and putting jobs back into that community to do that. We have great staff that work with not just men, but women that are homeless to help get them back on their feet to do that. And the cases haven't been that. I've not seen that. I mean, maybe some other shelters have seen that. But we have individuals, I mean, we have requirements. There's curfew rules that they have to meet. And then if they're inebriated to the point where they're a danger to themselves or to the people that are in there or in the community, then the police are called. They have to go to, to detox or whatever they're going to go to, but they're not going to be at our shelter.
Now, the reason why I went with this line of questioning is when I got elected the first time in 2007, I did take a tour of your old facility when you did have the shelter open. And I spoke with people that were in there, and I saw firsthand the resume building that you were doing, you were washing people's clothes and helping them find clothes that fit them for job interviews. You had a place where they could get clean. I spoke with several of the women and children that were in there, and I just very distinctly remember what one woman said to me. She said, "This is the only place where I feel my kids and I are safe to sleep." And I understand very much what Alderman Senior is saying. I currently have a Spark House going in one of the neighborhoods on my west side, and I have residents who are upset about it, and I've had to explain to them that that house is completely zoned to be able to do what they're doing. It's going in, and please make the best of it and be good neighbors. Be open and see what we can do together, because there's legally under zoning, there's no way to stop it.
Yep, can I respond to you though? Spark, Helping Hands, Contact Ministries, Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault, UCP, all are going to be in that immediate 7-block area.
And I understand. Like I said, I don't fault you one bit for doing your job.
And
this is what you're supposed to do.
I don't have anything against any of the agencies. I want to make that perfectly clear, but my concern is just for the residents. It seems like we're just saying, here, take this whether you like it or not, and that's the biggest concern that I have.
The one closing point I was going to make is that the hard part beyond what the mayor was saying about the Salvation Army or even Spark or whoever else coming in and saying that they're looking at this house, beyond the bank or whoever else saying, oh, public money, let's raise the price, is the fact that the immediate reaction from the residents in the area is going to be, not my backyard. And I have to freely admit, I'm human. If it were happening in my neighborhood, I'd probably react the same way. It's part of a normal human reaction when something is going in that's not what you expect.
Alderman McMiniman?
Major Woodard, thank you for your explanations and so forth. Regarding, and I understand you envision for Gold's Gym something more than a shelter, but as to the shelter function, how many beds do you anticipate will be at Gold's Gym?
Obviously, with a quick assessment, there's no way to, since it's so new to us, we haven't been able to assess totally with an architect looking in there what's size-wise, but I would propose that we could probably do maybe 40 men and 20 ladies. That would be increasing the bed space maybe from what we were able to do at this location here. But that's obviously a guesstimate without having to look at the actual size and be.
So I think that is a concern, that there's a beautiful park right across what would be the front door of Gold's Gym, and so that could become a hangout for those that are also using the shelter. So I think that's a concern. And another question is, as Mr. Mall mentioned earlier, there's currently, Salvation Army has a major rehabilitation and retail facility just one block from where the shelter would have been on, that we're talking about here, that you may now sell. And Mr. Mall mentioned that there will be some relocation or some impact on your existing buildings one diagonal block away at Jefferson and between the tracks and 11th Street. So are there relocation plans for those buildings?
That discussion is a total, I mean, we are one Salvation Army, but those are two separate board of directors for the Adult Rehabilitation Center and the Core Community Center with the Salvation, which I'm a part of. But that negotiation has to be is a separate negotiation of what they were looking to do. But there's been no discussion about where those locations might be at. We sat at the table at the same time of that meeting in February talking about the potential, but that the immediate need had to be with the Core Community Center, which I am a part of. The Adult Rehabilitation Center will be something that would be another negotiation in the future for the city to look at.
Okay, thank
And it's
you.
my understanding that it's more the warehouse, Jim O can speak to it. It's the warehouse portion because it takes away their parking capacity and ability to have vehicles pull behind that facility.
Yeah, that location, just for clarification, is also is an adult rehabilitation center. It's a place where men are rehabilitated, and it's a work therapy model that goes on there. A lot of people just think it's the thrift store, but those proceeds that go to the Salvation Army for those donations help get men back on the right track of making some right decisions in their life. So that happens as well. There's a housing component. There's also the warehouse that the mayor spoke of, and also the thrift store. But the warehouse and the thrift store is really the ones that would be up for negotiation to try to move or find another location probably for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Redpath?
You know, when Mayor Ozzie Langfelder was mayor here, I tried to talk him into buying the Salvation Army building and making it a police station, but I got outvoted 6-4, so that didn't happen.
Close one.
You know, Alderman Sinor brings a good point to it. There is the good and the bad to this whole thing. The good point is that you want to see the building stay unoccupied and maybe turn into a dilapidated building. But I think it's important for us at this point to start making although we'd like to have the communication start earlier, it's time to make communication happen now so we can maybe find a equal ground somewhere that we could make, if this is our only options, make it work. But you know, that's up to the.
I didn't invite any aldermen if they want to bring a location, but my motion next week, or 2 weeks, will be for the Gold's Gym location or to support the Salvation in their current facility, and with the caveat that there's no future consideration by city council to exercise eminent domain. That gives them the security in knowing that they'll spend millions of dollars to rehab a facility and that they're supported by the community to stay there.
And I agree, Mayor, but I just wanted to open up the lines of communication so we can maybe work out some
You can
kind
bring
of
a better structure at that price, we're all ears, right?
I don't have any. Thanks.
I just don't want, we've put them on hold long enough, we're not going to do it any longer than 2 weeks. They need the support of the community one way or the other.
Thank you, Major, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Major.
Alderman Donlin?
Yeah, just a quick question about the ordinance that's on the table. My understanding was the ordinance was simply asking us to extend a redevelopment agreement for the redevelopment of a structure within the TIF district. And just help me understand the mechanics of how we would be voting for the Gold's Gym and how this all fits together.
Corporation Counsel, would you like to explain how that process would work?
Certainly. I mean, presently, the current redevelopment agreement has expired. Without extending it, then effectively that takes away the TIF money, the 1.1 million.
Right.
And so the first step of this process would be to extend the existing agreement. You may recall they had actually asked for that some time ago. And so the effect of the ordinance is to extend the time under which they would be able to perform, and then also allow the option for them to explore relocation.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can we extend something that is expired, or do we have to renew the agreement itself?
No, this would be just an addendum to, effectively, it is renewing the agreement. The addendum is extending the time for performance under the original contract. And there have been, I think, I think there's been 3 other amendments through the years.
After they've already expired, I mean, from the legality of it, once something expires, you can't extend it because it's done. You would have to renew the whole agreement, wouldn't you?
Well, that's the effect of this. You're changing the date of performance, you're extending the time under the contract to perform. The original, the amendments which are set out in here, ordinances 3150913 and then 2140614, amended certain timeframes. That's what this addendum does, it's extending the time during which they can perform.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Van
I
Panem.
think we all understand that the need to extend the opportunity for Salvation Army to spend some money that's been allocated to them, but under our previous ordinances, we allocated the spending of that money in certain areas and categories of spending, like heating and air conditioning, architectural. They're listed here. $176,000 for demolition, $99,000 for sprinkler systems. So we got some legal issues here that need to be addressed, and I hope we can get the new structure of this TIF spending agreement worked out, because previously we've talked about how the Gold's Gym is outside the TIF district. And so we need to know who's going to get the redevelopment agreement. Is it going to be Salvation Army, or is it going to be Horace Mann that's going to purchase the property from Salvation Army? There's a host of legal issues here that are complicated, and I think it'll be dangerous for the council to make decisions at the last minute on complicated legal issues having to do with TIF compliance. So.
Well, that's why we have the best corporation counsel a city could have, and I'm sure he'll be up to
Stretch
that
his
task.
talents, Mr. Mayor.
Right, Mr. Zirkle? Is that correct?
I think that there could be an opportunity for this to
He's
be
too
fully
modest.
vetted.
I think
And
you
there
give you an
will be-
opportunity to negotiate a raise there, Jim.
So Corporation Council, will there be information that's be brought to us at the Committee of the Whole next week?
That is the hope right now, because there are other parties involved. I think Jim Moll kind of mentioned it. So there are other agreements that are in process right now.
Okay.
It is the part of that has been reduced to writing. There has been a formal offer prepared, if we want to go into any detail, but there's been a formal offer prepared from Horace Mann to Salvation Army. However, there are certain conditions and so on that are being worked about. In fact, I'm going to be meeting with the council for Horace Mann tomorrow to review some of the contingencies, but it then interrelates with the county, as Jim Moll was mentioning, and SMTD. So there's going to be some work kind of massaging the various parties involved. But that can happen, I personally think, in the next couple of weeks before any action by the council.
Well, is there any liens or contracts pending that would stop this move?
Alderman Redpath, if I might interrupt you, can we save that thought for next week when we're
Okay.
going to discuss it?
Sure.
And I'd like to hear from some of the residents, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is that all right, Mayor?
Sure. Thank you very much.
We finished answering the question at hand, though. The question that was presented by Alderman Donlin that I was also going to ask
Thank you.
is how does the purchase of the Gold's Gym, how is it affected by this ordinance? And I think the answer, long and short, is that it's not. This ordinance is only about the existing agreement with the existing building with the existing TIF funds, and Gold's Gym is outside of it. So is there another, Mayor, you're talking about your intention is to go one direction or another. Does that mean that you'd be bringing forward another ordinance that we'd be voting on beyond this? Because
I leave
this
it
is-
up to corporation counsel on the language.
I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of which direction you're going here.
My
Because
intent is to do
This vote, to
that.
me,
but
would
that's-
not affect the Gold's Gym purchase in any way, shape, or form.
That's what we'd have to have corporation counsel answer. Can he draft or instruct this ordinance to cover that basis for the
Well,
Gold's Gym property?
Presently, what this ordinance really does is to reconfirm the commitment of the $1.1 million to this project.
But that
there's
is
going
for
to
that
be,
one building.
or under the addendum, under the revised language, or explore relocation. And so, but does there have to be additional contracts? Yes. There may end up, and this is part of the structure part, it may end up that there'll be an exchange of property. It's not clear yet, but the substance is going to be affected by the purchase of the existing property and how that's going to be facilitated, but that's being worked on right now.
Well, Mayor, if I could just say
Yes,
one
Alderman
quick
Donlin.
thing. I spoke with, as you know, I spoke with you earlier today, and just had some general questions about really what we were trying to accomplish here, and I felt a lot better about what we're trying to accomplish here after speaking with you. So, Jim, Mr. Zirkle, there's too many Jims in the, maybe there's not enough Jims in the room.
But we are talking about buying a gym.
Yeah, there we go. But, Mr. Zirkle, I anxiously awaiting what you can come up with, and I must say also, I'm pleased that the Salvation Army is going to reach out to the community. As Alderman Sino, I agree with you, it would have been ideal if it would have been in the opposite order. However, that's not what we're dealing with, and I think those open houses will be good, and I know you want to hear from the residents. Oh, I do. Thank you.
So Harrison Beeler had signed up to speak. If you'd state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, Harrison Beeler, 1131 South 12th here in Springfield. I'm a precinct committee man in 77 where they sound like a dictatorship here today to me. I hate to say that because you guys already got your mind made up where you want Gold's Gym to be at. I had no idea that they was going to do this here. I didn't get time to go to the neighbors. I came here a couple of weeks ago, maybe, and I asked the council, if you're going to make any changes on my side of town, where I live at, grew up at, we need to have some language here. You just don't say, well, you got two options, that's it. Well, you know, there's other options here in Springfield for they to go. Why don't they go downtown to the YWCA and fix that up with that TIF money and all the homeless people hang outside in their neighborhood, okay? For one, we got a park around there, right across the street. Now, I am familiar with Salvation Army and what they have done for the community and everybody, but you know what? I'm happy for you guys doing that, but we don't want you in our backyard. We got UCP over here, over there already. We got new houses being built over there. This is going to devastate their property price. It's going to go down. Now, I've been over on the east side for over 30 years, and it seems like every time there's somewhere to dump, you dump your stuff over in our yard. And I don't want to dump in my yard. You're expanding on the west, you've been expanding the west all these years. Send them out west. I'm pretty sure they're building out west where they could go and find somewhere to go. But the mayor already said we got two options. That's it. Well, that's not fair either for us. We have kids that go in that park. We have Juneteenth in that park every year. Where are these people going to go in the morning time when they get up in the morning and say, you guys got to go out? They're going to hang in that park. 3 blocks down the way on, there's a liquor store. We got all the area in that area over there is all senior citizen. Gold Gym could be used for other things beside Salvation Army, okay? Yes, we do need a community center. That could be one of those things there too. But we don't need Salvation Army there for the community center. We can start our own community center. They knew about this here back last year in November. Why did we just hear about this Friday? Wow, that's great communication. Well, because you worried about money? That's all I heard up here is money. It's about greed. And I don't want my kids to be in an unsafe area because of greedy people want to make money or lose money. I don't care about your money. I care about my family and my neighborhood. I represent these people there. And it's a slap in the face to hear it on the news that somebody moving in my backyard without even saying something to me. It's a slap in the face. That disrespects my alderman. Keep it under wraps. I'm asking Alderman Senor that he has to investigate this, but I think some money must change hands somewhere here. You know, there's something going on here that this don't add up. And we probably need another corporation counselor too to look at the figures too and draw up this here. Because the mayor just plainly said, this is how I want to be. That's dictatorship. I didn't know I lived in North Korea. I thought it was Sprngfield. That's why we don't have a state budget now. Same thing. We got power versus money fighting head to head again. And who get crushed in the middle? The poor man. It's very rude of you guys to do that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Why we got to this position is the Salvation Army, as a reminder, looked at 45 sites across Sprngfield. We voted down an opportunity to build a new structure that is replicated in Quincy, Illinois. The options are to go with the location that we sought out for the Salvation Army at Gold's Gym, or the city council will support them at their current location. If another alderman or another resident of Sprngfield wants to bring forward a better solution to help a nonprofit that helps the city of Springfield's youth, seniors, and people that need it most, I welcome that opportunity. But again, Gold's Gym, market value of $3 million, Illini Bank's working with them, no money has exchanged hands. Its value, or they're going to sell to the Salvation Army. They reduced the price for the Salvation Army for $1,250,000. And so it is a rare opportunity that presents itself, and I'm supporting Salvation Army. Preferably, my support is for Gold's Gym location, but if the council does not do that, I am going to ask them to support them at their current location with a caveat that the council would put in place that for future city councils, they cannot exercise eminent domain, so the dollars that they've invested are not wasted. Thank you. Madam, if you would state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Frankie Brooks, 1605 East Adams.
Go ahead, sorry.
Most of what I had to say has mostly been said, except that I am very, actually, Mayor, I'm surprised of you. When I voted for you, but I thought that you would start doing the right thing for the east side of town. And right now, I don't feel that the east side of town is being treated fairly. Now, yes, Salvation Army, I have nothing against you guys. I give and I turn around and buy. Sometimes I may have bought my own stuff back, you know, but I do that. I'm willing to help anyone. I can help feed the hungry, the homeless, the people that are hungry. I don't mind sharing, but I do mind something being presented to the east side of town. And he said his backyard, it really is in my backyard. I do not appreciate that being done that way, because when we vote for people that we want to help us to be fair to the whole city, not just one side of the city. My biggest concern here is most of the homeless probably don't have cars, some might and some do. All homeless people are not fearful people. All homeless people are not bad people, I know that. But I am concerned of the ones that are not godly people. And those are the ones that we are afraid of. Have our children out in the play park, or even at nighttime, driving up in my driveway, just up and see one there, you know? So that's my concern. The next concern is the walking back and forward from 11th Street to Contact Ministry to the Public Aid Office to Salvation Army. And we got all that traffic there on Adams Street, and probably now it's going to be cut and crossed on Washington Street. Safety is one of the other things. The other thing is privacy. Can I now go back in my backyard and sit in my back porch and not have to wonder about somebody stalking me or looking at me at all times? Sleeping at quarters. How often are those people going to be out because they don't have room to get in, so they're going to park and start camping in the park? What time of day do they let these people out? I don't know. Some, like I say, some might have to go to work. That's fine. But for the ones that are not godly, saved people that don't mind tearing up other people's stuff, we got kids. in the neighborhood that goes out and play. Are we going to be safe with those kids going over there? Most parents probably take their kids. I hope I don't have any. I have grandkids. But my biggest concern here is just to ask you guys to please reconsider the location of any, not just east side, of any residential area and put the peoples where they're supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am,
Do you have a question for Alderman Tyler?
I think someone said she left something up there.
Oh, you left.
Ma'am,
You left your purse.
something up there.
She's really giving.
Yeah, you really.
Leave it there if you got any money.
No, that's a.
Good evening, everyone. Council.
Good evening.
You'd state your name and address.
My
for the
name is
council,
Mary
please.
Shanklin. I live at 1330 East Washington Street. And I know Miss Frankie very well, and I'm in agreement with what has been said tonight. I'm in support of the Salvation Army. And likewise, I give as well as I buy. But truly the concern is, as she said, was that park and how we take our grandkids there and how freely these people are going to be able to have access. And like she said, they're not going to be able to monitor these people all the time. And my greatest concern is that we wasn't told or informed about it. And this is almost sounding like it's a repeat of everybody else saying what haven't been said already. So I'm going to make it just brief and short. I wished truly that we would have been talked to or came by, because it does seem like it's the dumping ground. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Redpath, is it in your backyard? Herman Senior, thank you for supporting us. Ms. Turner, is it in your backyard? Very close. Mr. Flazenzi, is it in your backyard?
But I will say, I understand, I truly understand all of your concerns. I truly do. And every time people come up to talk about like supportive housing and that kind of thing, and I always tell them I understand because I'm surrounded by supportive housing, and they have all been good neighbors, and it has not been it has not been a problem for me. But I do understand your concerns.
And I believe that. I believe that. And I can go on and on. It'd be the same thing. It's not in your backyard. But the only thing that I see is that just like the other entities that's there is roaming at night. And it has been to the point that I had to put mace in my purse, because when they travel in 2 and 3 and 4. Ever since the Helping Hand has relocated to 11th and Washington, it has been just a congested area. So my concern is about safety, most of all safety. And I'm just asking you all just to reconsider, think about it. And I'm not saying like everyone else, we have anything against the Salvation Army. It's just some of the things that he mentioned, even with the churches. We have abundance of churches on the east side. We have the Boys and Girls Club. We have other things that goes on that he's saying he's going to supply us with that is already there anyway. So just please reconsider, think about it, just on the safety part of our kids' kids in our area. And I appreciate it for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you'd state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, hi. My name's Paula Hunter, and I live at 1212 East Adams. I've been living there for 22 years. My house was built by a Habitat for Humanities back in 1994. When I first moved in, the shelter was just getting started, and I was kind of worried about, okay, here I'm having a home, and the shelter's down there. Now there's the shelter. There, I think that might be Contact Ministry there. There's the Triangle Center. And I'm just as concerned as everyone. I have grandchildren. My daughter lives on the other side of Wheeler. She takes my grandchildren there daily when the weather's nice. And I can remember when you couldn't hang out there because it was so much violence. So my concern is, and what I see, I'm a person that I'm looking out the windows all the time. Call me nosy. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's people, and I don't know, maybe they couldn't get in down there, because I've watched where people couldn't get in at the shelter, and so they're outside, they're roaming, they're looking for somewhere to be. But I'm like everyone else, okay, if they can't get in at that building because there's only 40 beds for men and 20 beds for women, I didn't even hear anything about families. Will there be families in there that stand, or is just single men? I've seen up and down my street men, mainly men, who, okay, I don't know if they are on something or not, and I'm telling my grandkids, okay, stay on the porch, because, okay, stranger danger is what we say. So I don't know who these men are, but okay, they don't normally belong in that neighborhood, but they're there because they don't have nowhere else to go. The shelter says you can't stay here tonight, or you've been drinking or what have you. If this is a place where, let it be, they say beds, what about the mother and father who lost their job? They lost their home. Where are they going? Are they going there as well, or is this for men who need to get themselves together? Because some people don't want to be put together. Not everybody's violent, but okay, if it's about mental issues and we're taking them in, what about the mental issue people who are still roaming the streets? Where are they going? The Boys and Girls Club, yes, that would be wonderful if that was open for everyone to be able to go in, and your child can get tutoring, and they're teaching music lessons and different things like that. But to not even be notified, and like I said, no one's knocked at my door and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Can we talk with you? What's your ideal? This is the map. This is the plan. I'm just concerned as well because, like I said, my grandchildren, they enjoy going down there. My thing is, wonder if somebody's just wandering through there. We don't know if they're sex offenders or not who's going in there. Are they doing thorough background checks on the people who's going to be going in there? Because pretty much now, a sex offender does live in your areas. Okay, but the thing is, it's about the children, their safety, people's homes as well. Because after a while, if we can't get in somewhere, then we'll just break in somewhere. It would be, if there was another place or big open land, and I as well, I go to the Salvation Army on every Saturday. I enjoy buying, I donate as well, so I have nothing against them at all. Good program, but let's reach out to another area, or what's going to work for everybody. And for, like it to be saying, there's only 2 choices. I've been here for 54 and a half years here. There's more area around here. I'm not new to Sprngfield, I've been here all my life. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council on this issue? Yep. If you would come up and state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Good evening, James Johnson, 100 South Wheeler. I wasn't going to speak on this. I'm going to speak on a different issue, but since this one came up, and you had heard everybody, Mayor, and I think the main point that's being said is communication. You know, you guys were elected by the people to be the ears, or for us to go to. And for me to be able to call my alderman and say, hey, what's going on in my neighborhood? From the sounds of it to me, he didn't even know. So he couldn't even inform his constituents, and I think that's wrong. We don't mind what the Salvation Army does, but we're tired of being the last ones that know. You dump it on them, you say, here, take it, shove it, open it wide, no matter what. And I'm sure that if it was in anybody else's ward, you wouldn't like that either. Now, Tyler, I heard you say you've been here for years and this ain't the first time. I've been here longer, probably, I remember when you came. So I've been around here the longest. And Ward 2 gets everything when it comes to that Salvation Army. I don't think we even looked at anything on this side of the room as far as what to do. So how about we communicate, tell my alderman that this is what you're doing, instead of us having to hear about it on the news or come here and sit here for 2 hours to hear about something. You know, it's respectful to say, hey, this is what, and I understand why you didn't, but these are the people that are elected by us. Tell them, so when we got questions, we can bring it up to them, and then if we need to come down. So a lot of people are upset because, one, it's in their backyard, but 2, you're not communicating, you know? And we want our government to be transparent. You know, this is what the problem we had in the last administration, and maybe even the one before then, and maybe even the one before then. So we got to start changing. You know, a lot of people looked up to you to make that change, Mayor. You know, they trusted you, they voted for you. So when something like this comes up and happens, and then it's like, bang, a smack in your face, because nobody knew, but you guys did what you wanted. And so now we have to eat it. From the sounds of it, we got two choices. Okay, yes, we need a community center, but I've been here the longest. Why are we just now wanting to say, oh, we can do a community center? We've been asking for a community center for the last 10 years. There's been other properties, other buildings over there that we could have did something for as community center. Because I'm going to tell y'all right now, when the summer comes, our kids have nothing to do. We are going to be in trouble if we don't give them somewhere to go. Because being at home and not at school, and y'all know the saying, idle mind is a devil workshop. And our kids need somewhere to go. And we need a community center to where they can go and not be in danger of anything else. So let's work on finding a community center just for our kids in Ward 1 or even in Ward 10. Because these shelters don't have to be in Ward 2 all the time. Let's look west of 11th Street. Because if truth be told, if y'all look back at the record, Alderman, I've been around long enough, I know. It's all been over here in Ward 2, east of 11th Street. You don't believe me? Go look at the records. So that's all I'm asking y'all to do, is communicate. Because when I approach you or you or you, I should be able to get an answer. Because we voted you in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to address the council on this issue? Is there any unfinished?
Mayor, I make a motion that we move this, send it back to committee.
Second.
151.
It's been moved and seconded to send it back into committee. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Is there any unfinished business come before the city council? Is there any new business come before the city council? Again, I'd like to announce the open house that Major Woodard said. We will put out materials to the neighbors in the area, but it's going to be Saturday from 10 to noon, and also Wednesday, the 13th, from 6:30 to 8:30. That'll give Salvation Army an opportunity to show what their intent is for that facility if the city council does approve passage of that initiative. I would like to recognize Sprngfield Boy Scout Troop 312, and I actually appreciate Alderman Tylen bringing up Spark. Spark had a breakfast this morning, and actually one of the Boy Scouts is in that troop. Michael, or Mike, is he here?
All right.
We'd like you. Yeah, if you'd all stand, we appreciate you coming and sitting through this
Marathon
discussion. This is, we really appreciate your interest in coming to City Council. Is there any, anybody, new business from anybody? Alderman Turner, sorry.
Chris Richmond was here a little bit earlier. I just wanted to acknowledge him and Sprngfield Fire Department and the American Red Cross for their efforts this weekend on going out in Ward 3, installing smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms. I think they were able to install a little over 100, maybe 120, I think he said. So I think that's a great project that he's been doing. I know I think this is probably the third or fourth weekend that they've been out. So that is definitely worth acknowledging, and they're going to be going out. Their next one is in Enos Park neighborhood. So they're doing a really good job with that program.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Alderman Turner, for bringing that up. Anybody else? Business? Alderman Donlin?
Only because he wasn't here when I said it last time. Chief, thanks for your efforts on that program. We did one in January in Ward 9. It was phenomenal. I think we put over 70 up, and it was very successful. And if you want to do another one in Ward 9, you're certainly welcome. Thank you.
Just for the record.
You can come up if you'd like.
April 28th.
You want to come up, and that way we can hear it? We appreciate it.
He's kind of shy, though, I think.
You know, I'm relentless on this.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, we have done 4 events. Our next one's coming up April 28th. That's just, about 3 weeks from now. We're partnering up in Enos Park neighborhood, so up in that area. We're going to target about 1,000 homes. We're partnering with the neighborhood association there as well as SIU School of Medicine and the med students. So we're going to have a big volunteer turnout from SIU School of Medicine, Red Cross, and the city of Sprngfield for that event. So looking forward to it. That event should put us over the 1,000 mark for smoke detector and carbon dioxide. So we're looking forward to it. Hopefully, I know our elected officials are good at getting volunteers out. So if I can press you a little bit for maybe this next event on the 28th, that'd be perfect.
I think the other thing that he didn't mention is if they missed your house or if they weren't in your area, if you call the fire department, they will come out and do an assessment. So if you need a smoke alarm, don't wait for an event. Call the fire department.
Absolutely. That's our fire safety division number, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. You can call 789-2170, and we will make an appointment, send a big red truck with a crew of firefighters out to address the needs in your home. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'd like to recognize Tim Zarn. He's the county engineer. Thanks for coming tonight. And then we do have residents signed up to speak, or individuals. Andy Knott, if you'd like to come forward, please, and state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
I got a birthday party to go to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Andy Knott. I work for the Sierra Club. My address is 2818 Sutton Boulevard in St. Louis. I'll be brief. I want to talk a little bit about the fuel adjustment charge, which we'll be talking about next week at the council hall. I can't be here next week, so that's why I'm going to talk tonight. So 2 weeks ago, on Tuesday, the last council meeting, CWLP estimated that the cost of new environmental safeguards would be somewhere between $20 and $60 million at the Dahlman plant. That's a pretty wide range, $20 to $60 million. But it also matches up with some numbers that were in a 2013 study that the city commissioned by Burns and McDonnell. That study estimated that those costs would be between about $29 and $55 million. So it is still roughly in line with that, but it's still a pretty wide range of costs. And just one other point in terms of these numbers, in the capital plan that you all adopted a few months ago in the budget process, there was about $55 million in there for coal combustion or coal ash issues, and also converting is this for coal ash issues? And I guess my point is that these are fairly big numbers. As you all talk about the fuel adjustment charge next week, we would just urge you to start a public process that includes developing a long-range plan or an updated estimate of those costs so that you're not wondering about what this wide range of costs are, and that new analysis include looking at the cost of all the environmental safeguards as well as the economics of the older coal units, and that you conduct that process before making significant changes on rates again. And we think a public process is a good idea. This is a great example of this meeting. It'd be nice to have some meetings where we could talk about this in a more informal fashion and not wait until the end of a 3-hour meeting. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your patience, too.
Real quick.
That's okay. It's okay. Yes.
Alderman Hanauer?
Apparently, I was quoted on your website. I was a little shocked by that, but I just want to make a point that my quote in no way, shape, or form was an endorsement of a public process, as you guys keep coming up and talking about. In my opinion, the public process happened almost a year ago when we were all elected. We were elected to look at not only CWLP, but the whole city. And I think we've done a pretty good job this year. We've saved a lot of money. And we've got more to go. And I think Doug Brown will tell you that I'm on him pretty hard. And I'm going to continue to be on him. Because I want the best power plant possible. But it's my opinion that we have the public process. It's right up here. We allow people to come to speak. I don't understand what you want. I just don't, the public process is right here.
May I respond? Sure. I guess we feel that, again, this is great, and I love these meetings. I'm sort of a policy wonk, and it's just, I love local government. However, when you have a major utility that's part of the city, it just seems like there ought to be some special attention paid to it. And that's why we're asking for some other meetings where it's not waiting to the end of a 3-hour meeting for the conversation to happen, and where there can be dialogue back and forth. And I appreciate what you're saying about what that you're holding their feet to the fire. You're doing it probably stronger than we are, and we appreciate that. I think the reason that we quoted you was it was a great quote. You shouldn't be in the dark.
I've been telling people I say good things all the time, by the way.
Now you have the Sierra Club.
After sentence, it does sound great.
We've been looking for it.
Now you have the Sierra Club agreeing with you, so it's a historic day.
How about that?
I was shocked by it, I would say that.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
And we have had meetings with Sierra Club, and they have agreed to hold forums similar to our Public Pension Summit for CWLP, and I think they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I said I think I'd have 3 a year. I think that was correct. So the next person, we have James Johnson. We'll allow him to speak again if he so chooses.
Yes, sir. How much time did he have left from the last time?
What you say?
I said, how much time did he have left?
No, I want to talk about something different this time, and that's this CWLP and this public process. So I'm going to answer your question, because once again, we the public elected you. Your constituents elected you. CWLP is our power plant. So why we need to have public processes, because these last few meetings, and I agree with a lot of stuff, and I'm glad you on Doug Brown, because there's been a lot of information dropped, a lot of numbers, and I know it's hard for you guys just to sit and take it all in, because sitting out there was a headache taking it all in also. So if we can have meetings to where, because I'm sure you got about 2 or 3 people in your ward and on around that would love to come in and sit down and talk about that power plant. Because for one, we all are tired of higher rates. We're tired of getting screwed that way. And I agree with some of the aldermen, all the ones that agree with, some of that money needs to go back to us. And that's what we want. And so if we got a public process, we can sit down and make informed decisions together. Yeah, we elected you to represent us up here, but we also elected you to listen to us. Because if you don't listen to us, sure, we'll elect you, we can elect somebody else. So that process would help us. And here lately, we seem to be making decisions short term, and we need to start making long-term decisions, because this stuff that they bringing up
this ain't just happened. This is stuff that's been in the pipeline for a couple years, and I think you even said it at the last meeting. Why is it just now being dumped in our laps, and then we have to make a quick decision on it? And I agree totally with you and Jim Don. You know, to me, in the streets, we call that fast talk. You know, you trying to hustle us, and they bring us something real fast or real quick that's been in the pipeline for years, and then throw it in your lap and say, here, vote on it. Now, in 6 months, then they'll come back to and say, oh, well, we need more money. And guess who has to take that? The people, the public. The people who paid their bills that live in Sprngfield, Illinois, Sangamon County, and uses that power plant. So, as the NAACP, on behalf of Teresa and Diane, our environmental chair, they want you guys to know that they are in support of a public process. So we could sit down and not be in these meetings for 3-4 hours and be in a totally separate meeting and talk about just CWLP stuff. And you guys can answer questions, or Doug and his staff can answer questions. Because there's some people out there, and there's some that are probably not here now because it's so late, that has plenty of questions. And I'm sure there's some people out there that has a lot more knowledge about that CWLP too, that might help us make some informed decisions, give us some insight that we might not have looked at. Because I'm gonna tell you, these last 2 meetings that you guys have had, there's been a whole lot of information being dropped. And it's a bunch of numbers. And I'm kind of like the alderman over here. It's almost mind confusing because every time you come, there's something different. And there's something different. And that's why I call that fast talk. And I don't like fast talk, because to me, that means you're trying to get over. And I'm a ratepayer too. So I don't want to be getting over. I want to know what's going on. I don't want my rates to go up anymore. And I'm sure there's a ton of other people in this community feels the same way. So we want some of that money to go back to us. Not necessarily to the city council or whatever. We want to see it. So a public process, and yeah, the mayor did agree to 3 throughout the year, and we are sincerely hoping that we can have it. Then you can sit down and listen to everybody and hear their concerns. And that's all we ask. We're not going to try to make the decisions. We just want you to hear us out. And I think that's only fair for the people of the community who elected you to your seats and is a part of that power plant that is a public utility. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Janet Kapp. Janet Kapp. John Williams. You'd state your name and address, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, good evening, thank you, Mayor and council members. My name's John Williams. I'm 1 month short of being a resident at 1427 South College, here in Sprngfield, of course. Let me take a stab at making a pitch for a public process and tying into the fuel adjustment issue. I began attending these council meetings last September due to the huge role CWLP plays in our lives in terms of money, services, health, and I have to add fitness too for me in regards to the lake, for training and competition purposes as a triathlete. A triathlete is an endurance athlete, but I got to tell you, after sitting through this for 3 hours, I think you people are exceed my abilities in terms of being an endurance athlete of a different sort. I've listened to council discuss quite a few issues. I've weighed in a few times from this spot, advocating for greater public input on issues, along with delivering petitions a couple of times to the mayor last fall, and pressing Alderman Job to finally meet with me and some other constituents in his ward. He finally did, and we appreciate that. But back to CWLP issues. They've ranged from rate restructuring last fall to recent budget hearings. The latter generating many questions. To pull one out, whether selling power on the open market is a moneymaker or a loser. And let me digress at this point to share two related impressions I've recently developed. On the first impression, it seems to be widely viewed that CWLP can't sell excess capacity due to weak demand stemming from a sluggish economy. While it's true that nationwide demand for electricity is flat and even declining in some years, I've learned recently that it's primarily due to efficiencies at the user end, doing the same or more with less, because growing numbers of home and business owners installing the latest gadgets. Given this trend and its impact, is it realistic to expect to sell on the open market in the near future? You know, who's going to buy? And what about the inevitable impact of growing energy efficiency on us here in Sprngfield as both customers and owners of our utility? And the bigger question that pops into my head is, do we engage in long-term comprehensive planning with a broad-based array of stakeholders for this historic change which is already in motion, or let it sneak upon us unprepared, worsening our already fragile financial situation? The second recent impression, it seems to be assumed that if not to sell excess power, we need Dolman Units 1 and 2 to have sufficient native load. But do we? My eyeing of the numbers sees 3 and 4 producing about 400 megawatts, coupled with about 170 megawatts from the peaker units, together generating, simple math, 570 megawatts. And when you subtract the record peak demand, which I read was at 420, that leaves a difference of 150 megawatts. That's more than the 20% safety margin. So I ask, on what grounds can the continued operation of Dolmans 1 and 2 and their costly problems still be justified? But being new to this, I have to step back and ask myself, am I reading this information correctly? Am I on solid ground for what I just stated? And I ask you, do you know? We should know. And we should know a lot more if we're serious about moving beyond the current piecemeal steps taken without a true understanding of the big picture. You know, we need sufficient lead time in order to make the right decisions for now and in the future. And Alderman Hanauer, I'd like to quote from you. Quote, "We are kept in the dark until the final regulation is out, and we are stuck trying to come up with money for different projects." End of quote. It speaks to a frustration of stuff dumped in your laps at night. It seems like maybe at the most for a couple of weeks, and you have to make big ticket items. Big ticket decisions, excuse me. These and countless other concerns beg for serious, methodic, ongoing public discussion. In these pressing, we're in a new age. We're pressed more financially and with health and environmental concerns. And we can't leave out the revolutionary technologies. And altogether, those things are changing the way utilities must think and do business. We need to wait on raising the rates by modifying the fuel adjustment line of our monthly bills until a more detailed and long-term picture is provided, especially in regards to costs. A picture that will be provided by a comprehensive picture. We think a public process would provide. And the reference that Mayor Langfelder made earlier about agreeing to these public forums, we look forward to that. I think that would be a great start. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to point out one thing.
You're the poster
Clarify. I have to clarify this. Part of that comment was to Doug. We were going over, I don't even remember at this point, but my point was that when they get regulations, proposed regulations, that they need to share it with us ahead of time, taking the worst case scenario so that we know what's going on. And, you know, the what ifs, there's a lot of what ifs, and that's one of the things that Doug gets paid for and John gets paid for, is to do the what ifs. We need to know, you know, I was just simply asking them, when we start seeing these regulations and come out, to give us the worst case scenario and the idea of what it's going to be. That's all that comment was regarding. Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Anybody else wish to address the council?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have one more.
One more.
Is that all right?
I rescind that.
Okay. I think she lives in your ward too, Jim, so that's probably pretty good. Pretty good call. You'd state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Janet Kenny, Hazelnut Drive. I'm the president of the Sister Cities Association of Springfield, and I want to announce a job opening. See, this is good. We have an assistant language teacher position open in Ashikaga, Japan. You have to have a 4-year college degree. Applications need to be submitted by May 2nd of 2016. The position begins in July. It pays approximately $30,000. Applications will be reviewed by a committee. The Ashikaga chairman, Carol Circle, will have a committee formed, and they will review applications, and they will be submitted to Ashikaga. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? The contract will be for a year. There's a possibility of renewal after that for 1 or 2 years. And they also provide a pension, insurance, and a round-trip airfare. And one other quick thing.
Okay.
We're having a fundraiser April 17th at Osaka Restaurant. It's our Japan Day fundraiser from 11 to 2. All you have to do is come eat. We get a proceed from the profits, and we have a silent auction. So I hope you'll come join us April 17th from 11 to 2 at Osaka Restaurant on Wabash. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Japanese to
Teresa Haley?
Oh,
If you'd state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. We just finished our meeting. I just stopped by to say that the NAACP is also opposed to the Salvation Army being moved into the Gold's Gym for various reasons, that we're willing to meet with you and express our concerns.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. How about that?
Gotta do this.